His snow-white robes fluttered in the breeze along with his long facial hair, and he gave off a feeling of the immortal Tao. However, his gaze was sharp, so sharp that people didn't dare to look directly at him. Sword light flowed within his eyes. After many years, Ling Yunzi's appearance had changed quite a bit. However, Tang Waner and the others still recognized him instantly. Junior Ling Yunzi greets seniors. Ling Yunzi cupped his fists toward everyone. Even the high priest and Taoist Heavenly Feather rose to greet him. Ling Yunzi's aura was ephemeral. They couldn't sense his true cultivation base. However, it was possible to sense the sharp will of the Sword Tao. I've long since heard that a peerless genius has appeared within the Heavenly Sword Gate. As someone who cultivates the Annihilation Sword Tao, partially through his own cultivation and partially through the enlightenment of the heavens, he is a genius that has never appeared throughout all of history. Now that we meet, I see that the rumors are all true. The high priest looked at Ling Yunzi with admiration. It seemed that he could sense how terrifying the latter was. Ling Yunzi smiled humbly. Senior overpraises me. This junior merely had a lucky encounter. It was all thanks to Long Qin. I'm too ashamed to receive this praise. You're too courteous. Is Sect Master Heaven Spirit Sword Master well? If I recall correctly, he is my senior. Unfortunately, I've never had a chance to pay my respects to him, said the high priest. This startled Meng Qi and the others. Even Taoist Heavenly Feather with her startling seniority called the high priest senior, yet the high priest called Sect Master Heaven Spirit Sword Master as senior? Just what era was this person from? Master left this mortal world 3 months ago. It's a pity that he was never fated to meet with you, sighed Ling Yunzi. What a shame. If senior was present, doesn't that mean that you are this generation's sword master? The high priest's eyes suddenly widened. Ling Yunzi nodded. Junior is ashamed to say that with my pitiful talent, but I don't dare to betray my master's expectations. I could only thicken my skin and accept this heavy burden. The high priest and Taoist Heavenly Feather were pleasantly surprised. Ling Yunzi had become this generation's heavenly spirit sword master, so they had gained another powerful helper. Stop talking around the point. You said that Long Qin won't die. Is that true? Interrupted the old man. Ling Yunzi nodded. Senior, rest at ease. As long as I am still alive, he won't die. What does that mean? Asked the old man. Ling Yunzi smiled. Forgive this junior for not being able to answer. But I believe that the Xian master understands. Li Tianxian was startled. So you, Ling Yunzi nodded. So it wasn't just me. There's another. If we are still living well, Long Qin can't possibly die because this is fate. What nonsense are you two mumbling about? Demanded the old man. Let me put it simply. Long Qin won't die. What we should do is focus on advancing as fast as possible because the battle is quickly approaching. Don't mention the fact that Long Qin was captured. Even if the other side leaks this news, we can use Long Qin's clone to fake it, said Ling Yunzi. Sect Master, how did you know that Long Qin was captured? Do you have eyes in the divine families? Asked Tangwana. After Evil Moon had given them this news, they had not mentioned it to anyone outside of this room. No, the Heavenly Sword Gate is separated from the rest of the world. I have no connection with the divine families. As for how you will know in the future, I came over specifically for this matter. Do not try to save him. There is no need for unnecessary sacrifices. Other than that, I want to see my apprentice and tell him a few things. Forgive my rudeness. I'll be leaving first, said Ling Yunzi. He bowed to the high priest and the others before taking his leave. Ling Yunzi's arrival gave them a boost in confidence. If both Li Tianxian and Ling Yunzi were so sure, perhaps there really was no need to worry. Meng Qi and the others also grew a little calmer. In order to not cause panic, Linger controlled Long Qin's clone, making a few appearances throughout the martial heaven continent to prevent rumors from spreading. After that, they began refining pills and cultivating once more. Although they were worried about Long Qin, they had no choice but to focus on this. Since Long Qin's clone was still present, he had to still be alive. If he died, the wisp of soul essence he had used to create the clone would vanish, causing the clone to crumble. In order to not worry others, They locked down this information. Right now, all they could do was trust in Long Chen. Meng Qi and the others refined pills almost crazily. They had Xiachen set up his strongest formations to absorb the power of these medicinal pills and assist everyone in the Dragonblood Legion in cultivation. Meng Qi knew that after capturing Long Chen, the divine families would do everything in their power to crash down upon the martial heaven continent as fast as possible. Right now, the only thing they could do to prevent such a thing was to advance as quickly as possible. Due to refining at such a crazy speed, they ended up with a large stock. Even the old man, Chu Jianying, and a few other trusted seniors were given some pills to power themselves. This was along with some of the more talented disciples of the martial heaven continent. No one cared what side effects these medicinal pills had. They did everything they could to survive. All Meng Qi and the others could do was refine these pills. As for the rest, they could only wait and see. Long Chen, do you still refuse to say anything? Let me tell you, Long Outyen already successfully advanced to the Emperor realm yesterday. Did you hear? He's already an emperor, the Heaven Executioner taunted Long Chen angrily. It had been 20 days, but he had yet to pry open Long Chen's mouth. Moreover, he had used up every form of torture he had in his arsenal. For the first time, the torture skill he had complete confidence in had run into a steel board. None of his techniques could make Long Chen submit or rattle his will. Long Chen had countless wounds on his body, but no blood flowed out. That was because almost all his blood had bled out. His face was as pale as paper. Long Chen looked at the angry Heaven Executioner mockingly. So what? Does it have anything to do with me? Idiot, do you not know? They will all become sovereigns soon. At that time, everyone you care about will be killed. Do you want to personally witness it? Sneered the Heaven Executioner. You're the idiot. You've used 100 tricks, and you thought that this would be what rattled me? How naive, laughed Long Chen. The Heaven Executioner furiously struck Long Chen's stomach, causing him to faint. Fuck, he pisses me off. The Heaven Executioner furiously left as there was no way for him to create an opening in Long Chen's mind. Even threatening his family didn't work. As his soul was still unshakable, there was no way to read his soul. Long Chen slowly woke up with a sneer on his face. The flame energy has been gathering for so many days. It should be enough to open the primal chaos bead. Success or failure will be decided by this one move. Long Chen closed his eyes. Above his dantian, a cluster of flames in the form of a human slowly formed hand seals. But, as a result, Long Chen's dantian quivered and a ball of light opened. Using the power of the spirit flame, Long Chen finally managed to restore his connection to the primal chaos bead. With the primal chaos space open, he sighed with relief. With the primal chaos bead, he would be able to shatter the power of the formations binding him. However, he didn't immediately do that. What would be the point? He would still be trapped here. Once the formations were broken, the divine families would definitely sense it. At that time, an army of experts would arrive and he would still be unable to escape. After opening the primal chaos space, surprisingly, the first thing to react was the bronze fragment. That was a fragment of the Eastern Wasteland bell. It began to glow. With a thought, Long Chen summoned the bronze fragment, which began to rapidly flicker. At this moment, space fluctuated according to a certain rhythm as if transmitting something. Suddenly, an illusory figure appeared before Long Chen. Upon seeing it, Long Chen cried out in shock. That figure was the Eastern Wasteland bell. It was no longer as broken down as it was when he had first met it. Although it was just an illusory image before him, its aura was grand and sacred. Eastern Wasteland bell, what are you doing here? It really is fate. You came. The Eastern Wasteland bell laughed with a trace of relief. Senior, save me, said Long Chen excitedly. I'm the one who needs saving. What? Ice water washed over Long Chen. He angrily said, Look at what state I'm in. How am I supposed to save you? Long Chen had been tortured to the point where he no longer looked human. Without the slightest energy, he couldn't even save himself, let alone someone else. Don't panic. First listen to my explanation. These bastards concealed my body within 8 hidden worlds. I've been searching for those fragments one by one during these years, but I'm still missing 2 fragments. One is the piece you have in your hand, while the other is sealed at the bottom of this world. There is an eternal azure vine, an immemorial life form absorbing its power there, said the Eastern Wasteland Bell. As it spoke, Long Chen's bronze fragment slowly merged into its illusory image and faded into it. The image of the Eastern Wasteland Bell grew more complete. Its aura also grew explosively. Even you, the leader of the 5 supreme divine items, are unable to deal with it? Asked Long Chen in disbelief. Killing it would be simple. But there are 2 thorny problems. If I kill it, the energy of mine that it has been absorbing throughout all these years will be lost. Even if I obtain that fragment, I won't be able to regain all that power. The other problem is that it is protected by formations. If it is killed, it will immediately be sensed. That's why I'm currently pondering how to eliminate it. But now you're here. It really is perfect, said the Eastern Wasteland Bell. What can I possibly do against it? Bring out your black soil. I'll make it wither and slowly spit out all my energy. It won't alarm anyone this way. Is that eternal azure vine an idiot? It won't resist? It won't alert anyone? Asked Long Chen. No, it does not possess such a spirit. In any case, this method will definitely work. Bring out your black soil, said the Eastern Wasteland Bell. At the next moment, the black soil began to fly out, forming a current that flowed into the image of the Eastern Wasteland Bell. It emitted a ray of light to absorb all the black soil. That's enough. After an incense stick's worth of time, the Eastern Wasteland Bell cried out excitedly. It sent a rune into Long Chen's body. I still can't save you in this state. If you encounter danger, shatter that rune and I will try to help. However, it would be best if you can stall for some time. If I cannot recover all my power, I won't be able to defeat the heaven-devastating bracelet, instructed the Eastern Wasteland Bell. Long Chen nodded. That fragment and the energy that had been absorbed from the eternal azure vine were critically important to the Eastern Wasteland Bell, and thus also to the Martial Heaven continent's survival. As a result, Long Chen definitely couldn't shatter that rune too early, or it would ruin all the efforts of the Eastern Wasteland Bell. After that, the image of the Eastern Wasteland Bell vanished. Long Chen didn't know in which corner of this world its true body was hiding, but it seemed that the Eastern Wasteland Bell had to have entered just recently, or it would have gone to find him for his black soil long ago. Relying on myself is better than relying on others. Long Chen couldn't help sighing. Seeing the Eastern Wasteland Bell had made him think that he was saved, but he hadn't expected that it also had its own troubles. Originally, Long Chen was planning on drawing all the formations binding him into the primal chaos space. He couldn't control it fully, but once foreign power attacked it, it would automatically strike back. He was confident that its power could shatter these formations. However, that would definitely send an alarm through the divine families. If he couldn't escape, it was meaningless. Long Chen decided to wait until the Heaven Executioner returned. Long Chen could capture him when he least expected it and force him to open the spatial gate. The arrival of the Eastern Wasteland Bell forced him to be passive. He had to wait for it to finish. Time passed day by day. The Heaven Executioner always returned every few days to torture him. During this period, Long Chen almost killed him several times, but he still endured. The Heaven Executioner didn't sense the change in Long Chen, but he was growing more and more explosive. Long Chen's unshakable will made him despair. On this day, the Heaven Executioner returned once more. However, he didn't immediately start with his tortures this time. It's the 29th day today. The deadline is tomorrow, and it is your final chance. I'm going to tell you some news that you won't like. Long Outyen has become a sovereign along with the heavenly geniuses of the other worlds. As tomorrow is the day of the assault on the Martial Heaven continent, its destruction is already set in stone. Everyone related to you will die. Those people that you're close to, especially your women, will definitely find death to be a luxury. The Lord Saint has said that as long as you tell us your secrets, he can spare your women. You don't need to answer me right away. I'll give you 1 day to consider it. If you still don't give me any satisfactory answers when I return tomorrow, I'll execute the death torture on you. The Heaven Executioner left after saying that. Long Chen's expression was gloomy. Was their cultivation speed really so fast? Eastern Wasteland Belle, how much longer? Asked Long Chen. This was no good. They had no more time. Almost. Trust me, we'll make it, answered the Eastern Wasteland Belle. The next day arrived far too quickly. At this moment, the Heaven Executioner glared at Long Chen. The battle has started. There is no longer a use for you. Are you going to speak? Roared the Heaven Executioner. His patience was gone. Long Chen had too many secrets on him. Hence, even now, the divine families refused to give up. However, the only one capable of making Long Chen open his mouth was the Heaven Executioner, and even he had failed. If he had failed, then there was no point in others even trying. As a result, the divine families had given the Heaven Executioner the order to try one final push, and if it still failed, all they could do was kill Long Chen. Although Long Chen was caught and trapped here, just the idea of him living made them uneasy. Back then, you crippled my Dantian, but I still managed to grow to this level. Do you feel like there's any chance that I'll submit to you? Sneered Long Chen. Then I'll just cripple you once more. The Heaven Executioner furiously unleashed a palm on Long Chen's Dantian. Primal Chaos Bead, someone's attacking you. You better kill him. Long Chen prayed inside. He had successfully baited the Heaven Executioner into attacking his Dantian. Boom. Long Chen's Dantian rumbled. The Primal Chaos Bead didn't react, but his 108,000 stars appeared. Not good. Long Chen's expression changed. You have this many astral spaces? The Heaven Executioner was surprised. A star diagram had appeared within Long Chen's Dantian and manifested before him. Eastern Wasteland Belle, what are you doing? I can't stall any longer, roared Long Chen inside. Close. Just the final step remains, responded the Eastern Wasteland Belle, also at a critical juncture. Unfortunately, both of them were at critical junctures. If the Eastern Wasteland Belle came over now, everything would be for naught. Long Chen had the most difficult choice in front of him. He glared at the Heaven Executioner, and the Heaven Executioner smiled sinisterly. No wonder you have so much power. So your cultivation path is different from everyone else's. A total of 108,000 astral spaces. It really is hard to imagine. Just how strong is your world energy? Fortunately, you didn't get to continue growing. With this kind of foundation, even just reaching the Emperor realm might be enough for you to be completely unrivaled. How unfortunate for you that this is your fate. You were fated to die to my hands. Whether it was when you were first born or today, you never managed to escape my grasp. You have so many stars. Crushing them one by one sounds like a fun idea. I'll try it. The Heaven Executioner finally saw some hope of success, so he smiled excitedly. Long Chen's furious gaze only stimulated him. Long Chen clenched his fists. Strike back or endure. If the Eastern Wasteland Belle couldn't fully recover, it wouldn't be able to handle the Heaven Devastating Bracelet. The Eastern Wasteland Belle had told him that the Heaven Devastating Bracelet was their most terrifying enemy. If they couldn't deal with it, the martial Heaven continent would be destroyed no matter what. However, if he endured, his stars would be destroyed. That would affect the power of the 9-star Hegemon body art, and he might even be crippled. Long Chen was caught in a painful dilemma. Boom. Just as Long Chen was hesitating, the Heaven Executioner formed a hand seal. A hand appeared within the star map in Long Chen's body, grabbing one of the stars and crushing it. The star exploded, causing Long Chen to let out a furious roar. This was a humiliation, and a wave of anger that he could not suppress exploded out of him. His killing intent condensed into a solid form. Hee, good, now it's interesting. You refused to make a sound before. A wooden log isn't interesting. Scream some more. The Heaven Executioner grew more excited seeing this reaction. However, just as he was pleased by this, a majestic energy surged out of Long Chen's Dantian. In that instant, space and time seemed to freeze. The Heaven Executioner was shocked to find that he couldn't move. Most terrifying of all, the power of heaven and earth had vanished along with the laws of the heavenly Daos. He couldn't sense any heavenly Tao energy. What? The Heaven Executioner was terrified. He didn't know what had happened. The power of the outside world had vanished, and even his own world energy was sealed. He had fallen from a peak expert to an ant in an instant. Mist surged out of Long Chen's dantian, and the formations binding Long Chen's body turned to dust. But no alarm rang out. Even the destroyed formation runes were unable to spread. It was as if the world was frozen. The only thing moving was a cyclone around Long Chen's dantian. So that's the case. It seems that I need to thank you for helping me inadvertently open the gate to the 9-star Hegemon body art. Long Chen smiled oddly at the terrified Heaven Executioner. One of his 108,000 stars had been broken. Due to that, it created space for the rest of his 108,000 stars to start moving. Before this, his star map was like a game board covered in pieces. Since the board was full, there was nowhere for any of the pieces to move. However, once one piece was removed, it created space for the rest of the pieces to move. Minutes ago, his star map was dead. Now it was alive. His 108,000 stars began to move on their own, and as they did, endless power filled Long Chen's body. Only when something is imperfect is there room to grow. Something that is perfect is dead. Because the moon wanes, it also waxes. Only by being imperfect is it possible to manifest the changes of the Tao. Long Chen instantly comprehended this. The enlightenment that the sovereigns had tried to pass down to him through their experiences and techniques became clear. Long Chen reached out and tore off the Heaven Executioner's arm. In his hand was a violet jade pendant. Seeing that jade pendant, Long Chen's expression changed. The Heaven Executioner sneered. Hee, although I couldn't ring the alarm, the spiritual imprint inside of my soul-calming jade has been erased. In other words, you are trapped in this world. It will take years for you to find the spatial node of this world. By that time, the Martial Heaven continent will have long since been destroyed. Furthermore, when they see that the channel to this world has been shut, they'll know what happened. They'll destroy this entire world along with you just to ensure that you have no chance of survival. You can't escape. Long Chen punched the Heaven Executioner's dantian. As a result, the Heaven Executioner coughed up a mouthful of blood, and cracks spread throughout his body. He almost exploded from this one punch from Long Chen. Oh, sorry. I was just trying to cripple your dantian, but I used a bit too much power. Fortunately, you didn't die. That would be letting you off far too easily. I've memorized all your techniques. Let's switch positions and just see how tough your bones are. After crippling the Heaven Executioner, a rune on Long Chen's palm lit up. The blue-haired Lei Linger appeared. Lei Linger, you should know what to do. Big brother, don't worry. I won't let him die. I'll make sure he lives a life worse than death. I'll return double the pain he made you suffer. Lei Linger took out a small lightning blade and stabbed it into the Heaven Executioner's chest. The method, angle, and positioning were all the same as the Heaven Executioner's technique. The Heaven Executioner let out a miserable scream, his body quivering in pain. At this moment, Long Chen smiled. That scream was like music to his ears. Lei Linger, bring him with you. Let's go find the Eastern Wasteland bell. Just as Long Chen said this, the void shuddered. The Eastern Wasteland bell appeared before him. I'm here. The Eastern Wasteland bell's true body appeared in front of Long Chen. Although it only looked to be 3 meters tall, its dull color had changed. It had gone from drab bronze to dark gold. Countless carvings were on top of it. There were flowers and birds, fish and bugs, mountains and seas. Divine light flowed within it. It was as if its body was its own world. The Eastern Wasteland bell had gathered all the fragments of its body and all its power. With its complete body, it contained boundless divine might. How amazing! Long Chen couldn't help being emotionally moved when he sensed the boundless power of the Eastern Wasteland bell. As expected of the leader of the 5 supreme divine items, its aura was stunning. It's thanks to you. I've finally recovered. We'll be able to fight against the heaven-devastating bracelet again, said the Eastern Wasteland bell with burning battle intent. Back then, if it wasn't for the betrayal of the master of the southern sea Zither, we wouldn't have lost so miserably. This time, we will end everything with the divine families and the other worlds. Senior, can you tell me what is going on for the divine families and the other worlds to attack the martial heaven continent? What do they hope to gain? Asked Long Chen. Lei Linger, continue. But have him shut up. Long Chen suddenly turned to Lei Linger because the heaven executioner's pig-like screams were quite loud. Long Chen hadn't expected the heaven executioner, the master of all kinds of tortures, to be so weak against his own tortures. He fainted many times but was forcibly woken by Lei Linger. The heaven executioner's various techniques were all replicated by Lei Linger. She returned all the tortures that he had used on Long Chen. Although Long Chen was extremely refreshed by the heaven executioner's screams, he was getting fed up. As a result, Lei Linger made it so that the heaven executioner didn't even have the right to scream. A net of lightning formed in the air, binding him. The heaven executioner's eyes almost popped out of their sockets, and his body was constantly twitching violently, but he couldn't make a sound. Long Chen sat down. Having just escaped his bindings, he still had many wounds. There was no way he could fight in this state. He focused on recovering, while the Eastern Wasteland Bell explained some of the history of the martial heaven continent. The battle is about to start, so most karmic taboos are no longer relevant. I will tell you this. Their goal has always been to obtain the core of the star field. This refers to the heart of the star field, the origin from which a world is born and grows, the existence that allows all the life forms between heaven and earth to evolve. It is the heart of the martial heaven continent. The heaven devastating bracelet is the only thing capable of sucking away this core. Thus, in order to protect the martial heaven continent, the top priority is being able to fight off the heaven devastating bracelet. Doesn't the heaven devastating bracelet belong to the sea demon race? I've pretty much exterminated the sea demon race. Can someone else control the heaven devastating bracelet? Asked Long Chen. No, you're wrong. The heaven devastating bracelet has no master, and it will not follow anyone. It is an immortal item from a higher plane. It has only one mission, and that is to destroy the martial heaven continent. The power it requires is the blood chi, spiritual energy, and resentment produced from slaughter. When the battle starts, whether it is the invaders dying to our defense, or the invaders slaughtering us, the heaven devastating bracelet will still get stronger. Once it has enough power, it will activate the formation to take away the core of the star field. That is the moment that this world will be destroyed. What is this core? What is the point? Furthermore, with so many different forces fighting for it, how are they supposed to split it? They seem to be working together without any backstabbing. Even the experts of the other worlds seemed aware that the divine families were traitors of the continent. That must mean that they have some existence backing them. Furthermore, the one thing that I truly can't understand is why did the sovereigns not say anything? I refuse to believe that they didn't realize this, said Long Chen. The Eastern Wasteland Bell sighed. This is a trap, a giant, heaven-encompassing trap. You can consider the core of the star field as a treasure that can give birth to a new star field world. However, once it has been taken, it will no longer be the old world. To us in the mortal world, this core doesn't have any meaning. But it is useful to those who have ascended. Or perhaps I should say it is useful to gods. They can create a world of life forms that are their believers, who will give them an unending stream of faith energy. Perhaps you will understand once you ascend. As for your point about there being a backer behind them, you are correct. But no one knows who or what it is. That relates to the higher plane. It might even have to do with competing gods. The reason that the 5 sovereigns didn't reveal this to the world is because this is all a trap. The board was set in motion, encompassing the invading world as well as the martial heaven continent. You think that you just happened to be caught and trapped here, and just happened to encounter me? No, there are not that many coincidences in this world. The day that you set foot into the cultivation world, your fate deviated from its original path. The martial heaven continent arranged for you to reach this point. If we consider this battle of fates as a game board, then you are the martial heaven continent's destined game breaker. The martial heaven continent has bound its fate to you. You are its only hope. As for why the martial heaven continent would choose you, you are the only one who knows. Aren't you the head of the 5 supreme divine items of the martial heaven continent? You came into existence at the same time as the continent. I always thought that you could represent the martial heaven continent, said Long Chen with surprise. The 5 supreme divine items are the companion divine items of the martial heaven continent. Let me put it to you this way, when the martial heaven continent was born, we were also born by the Creator. The Creator? Long Chen's heart leaped. The Eastern Wasteland Bell didn't reply to this question. You can view the martial heaven continent as a monarch, while we are its protectors. Protecting the martial heaven continent is our duty. If we die, then the martial heaven continent will continue to live, but if the martial heaven continent is destroyed, we will also be destroyed. Everyone has been drawn into the board. No one can stay out. Long Chen, if you want to save the people beside you, then it will depend on the survival of the martial heaven continent. Long Chen nodded. He didn't feel resentment toward the martial heaven continent. Instead, he felt great admiration toward all 5 sovereigns. Even if he was a game piece, he was willing to carry out his role. Even if he died in the process, he would not blame the continent. As he listened to the Eastern Wasteland Bell divulge the secrets of the martial heaven continent, he rapidly healed. Although his injuries were so severe that he could almost be considered half-crippled, his new star map that had come to life was unleashing endless energy, rapidly restoring his spiritual yuan and spiritual strength. As for the primal chaos space's life energy, it rapidly flowed throughout his body, restoring his flesh and blood. An hour later, he had recovered about 90%. He finally stood. The violently twitching, frothing at the mouth heaven executioner lay on the ground. At this moment, Long Chen pointed a single finger. Blood splashed and a hole appeared in the heaven executioner's head. His body instantly became limp. After piercing the heaven executioner's head with his finger, Long Chen pulled back his hand, dragging a fist-sized yuan spirit out. At the same time, flames soared within his hand, enveloping the heaven executioner's yuan spirit. Ah! The heaven executioner's yuan spirit screamed miserably. This was the most painful torture, but since the heaven executioner wasn't an alchemist, he could never use this move. Although the power of this pill flame was far inferior to Hualinger's power, it was enough when it came to tormenting people. The heaven executioner's dantian had been crippled, and his physical body had been tortured by Lei Linger to its limit. If Long Chen wanted him to feel pain, Long Chen would have to let the heaven executioner rest and recover before further torture. However, he didn't want to do that. There are 10 levels to using pill flame to refine a soul. It is said that the highest level is so painful that it cannot be described with words. As the most skilled torturer of the divine families, I'll trouble you to help me experience it. Hopefully, you will be able to describe it. Long Chen smiled with his teeth, which gave off a cold glint, making him seem like a demon. No, kill me. The pain of having the soul refined was unimaginable. The only reason that Long Chen had managed to endure the heaven executioner's various tortures was because he had experienced the pain of having his soul ripped apart. Back then, Meng Qi's soul seed had been ruined by the Wind Soul Pavilion's people, crippling her. Long Chen had then forcibly torn off a part of his soul and condensed it into a soul seed for her. After experiencing the pain of his soul being ripped, the pain of his physical body was no longer so terrifying. On the other hand, while the heaven executioner was a vicious person, he was only vicious to others. He had never had to test his viciousness on himself. Ah! Long Chen ignored the heaven executioner's plea, and his flame soared, condensing into 2 lotuses. They began to grind against each other, one on top and one on the bottom. As the heaven executioner's yuan spirit was being twisted and ground, his screams instantly rose to a new intensity. When the flame grew stronger, his yuan spirit actually ignited and quickly showed signs of withering. As a result, Long Chen pulled back his flames. His spiritual strength then poured into the withered yuan spirit, causing it to recover. Not bad, you lasted an incense stick's worth of time. We can progress to the 3rd level, said Long Chen. No, kill me. I beg you, kill me. Treat it as mercy, I beg you. The heaven executioner cried out tearfully. He had reached his breaking point. He had spent a lifetime torturing others but never had to endure any tortures himself. Hence, his endurance was even worse than an ordinary person's. If Long Chen wasn't controlling his power, he would have died. Long Chen sneered. You've done so much evil. Why should I have mercy on you? Did you have mercy on me when you tortured me? Did you have mercy when you stole my spirit root, spirit bone, and spirit blood? However, I'll give you one chance. Answer my questions properly, and I'll give you a quick death. If you hide anything from me, I guarantee that you'll regret it. Ask, cried out the heaven executioner. He didn't even think about living and just wanted to end things. Death was his release. Has the battle truly started? Yes, it's already. The flames once more soared, and the heaven executioner screamed. You really are an idiot. Although your realm is higher than mine, my spiritual strength is 1,000 times stronger than yours. Do you really think you can lie in front of me? Said Long Chen angrily. His soul was completely locked onto the heaven executioner's soul. Any lies would be instantly sensed. I'll tell you the truth. The battle hasn't started. We're still preparing. Shouted the heaven executioner. Long Chen snorted and retracted his flames. After that, he sent some spiritual strength into the heaven executioner's Yuan spirit to avoid him accidentally dying. When the heaven executioner had first told him that the battle had started, he had been worried, but then he suddenly felt that it didn't make sense. If the battle had really started, the divine families definitely wouldn't kill him like this. They would at least drag him in front of the martial heaven continent and kill him in front of everyone to shatter their confidence. That would be far more beneficial to their assault. They wouldn't waste his life. Long Chen's judgment was that the heaven executioner had said this to him on purpose, and now he personally admitted to it. Now Long Chen was much more at ease. If the battle hadn't started, then there was still time. What realm has Long Outyen's cultivation base reached? Demanded Long Chen. The heaven executioner had also said that when Long Outyen and the others became sovereigns, they would immediately attack. If the battle hadn't started, then they had yet to advance to that realm. He has reached the 11th heaven stage and is attempting to break through to the 12th heaven stage, the Emperor realm, answered the heaven executioner. So he's reached the Saint realm. He really is fast. Long Chen's heart shook. He suddenly asked, how is Long Outyen's cultivation advancing so quickly? Because the divine families have sacrificed all life forms in several of the minor worlds that they rule, said the heaven executioner. The divine families had several minor worlds under their control, and those minor worlds were filled with countless life forms. They were the sacrifices that the divine families had prepared for Long Outyen. It wasn't just Long Outyen. The nine-headed lion, the blood fiend devil lord, the all-devil heaven walker, and Yi Ming were doing the same. Yi Ming in particular had gone above and beyond. He had even tricked the corrupt god, betraying the latter and offering all the corrupt path's believers as sacrifices. Adding to the offerings that the undying race had prepared for him, his cultivation speed was the fastest. They are all walking heretical paths. This isn't the true path of a sovereign. That's why their past sovereigns were never on the same level as the martial heaven continent sovereigns. The true sovereigns obtained the approval of the world, and the world willingly gave all its power to them. It wasn't forcibly snatched, said the Eastern Wasteland Bell. Long Chen nodded. These people definitely couldn't compare to Sovereign Yunshang and the others even once they became sovereigns. However, while this method of theirs was truly evil, sacrificing these countless lives did allow their cultivation speeds to soar to a frightening rate. Now Long Chen understood why Sovereign Yunshang had sneered disdainfully back then when Long Chen had asked him about gods. What kind of dogs-hit gods were these? Whatever gods were backing them were clearly wicked demons. Faith? Protection? Bullshit. It was simply both sides using each other for whatever gains they could obtain. Tell me what happened back then. Why did you harm my family? Asked Long Chen, a vein throbbing on his forehead. Under Long Chen's forceful torture, the heaven executioner finally spat out the secret of what had happened back then. This story was something that only a few people knew of within the divine families. Back then, the Long family of the divine families had produced a shocking genius. He reached Nether Passage at 18 and Heaven Merging at 20. After 3 more years, he gave up on focusing on his rapid cultivation, instead roaming the surrounding worlds around the martial heaven continent and comprehending the heavenly Daos. He then created 9 completely unprecedented magical arts and divine abilities. Within the entire continent, the only one who could compare to him was the sovereigns, and he was said to be the closest existence to the sovereigns. All the other heavenly geniuses of that time lost their luster when compared to him. At that time, the martial heaven continent was in a special period. Some young geniuses from a higher world came to the continent in order to gain experience, and one of them was a woman named Luo Ningxuang. During this tempering experience on the continent, she was attracted to Long Zhantian, and the two of them ended up quickly falling in love. Other than them, there was another woman from that group who stayed behind. This person was Long Outyen's mother. These disciples were supposed to return to their higher world after their tempering experience, but Luo Ningxuang chose to stay, refusing to leave. It was said that this matter caused quite a few waves. But since the others who had come with her were unable to force her, and there was no way for stronger experts to descend to this world, she remained behind. It seemed that other things had occurred afterward, but the heaven executioner was unaware of those things. The end result was that Luo Ningxuang stayed behind. 2 years later, Long Outyen's mother gave birth to Long Outyen. He had such astonishing innate talent that it shook the divine families. However, a year after that, Long Chen was born. This time, the divine families were simply stunned. A mutated spirit root, a divine spirit bone, and supreme spirit blood. That was an immortal sprout. According to their information, such a talent was something that might not appear once in 10,000 years even in the higher planes. It was at this time that Long Outyen's mother came up with the plot to steal Long Chen's spirit blood, spirit root, and spirit bone for Long Outyen. As for the heaven executioner, he had experience in doing such immensely cruel things, so it was he who Long Outyen's mother went to. At that time, Long Outyen had reached a full year in age, which according to the heaven executioner was the optimal time for this transplant. However, he didn't dare to do such a thing. It was Long Outyen's mother who stole Long Chen without anyone being aware and forced him to do it, saying that she would kill him if he didn't. She even said that no matter what happened, she would bear the responsibility for it. As a result, Long Chen met a cruel fate. Long Outyen's mother then directly reported her actions to the higher-ups of the divine families after it was done, infuriating them. However, when she revealed her status, they didn't dare to say anything. At that time, the heaven executioner was not yet qualified to participate in a meeting of that level. However, later he learned that she possessed a particularly terrifying background, and that was why she was so fearless. Furthermore, things were already done. They had taken Long Chen's innate talent and transplanted it into Long Outyen. What else could the divine families do? Furthermore, she said that Long Chen was already dead. The divine families were infuriated, but what had been done could not be undone. It wasn't as if they could simply kill Long Outyen as revenge for Long Chen. They also couldn't allow Long Zhantian to kill Long Outyen's mother considering her status. Helplessly, the divine families could only advise Long Zhantian and Luo Ningxuang to calm down and slowly come up with a countermeasure. However, with their son taken, how could they possibly listen? Long Zhantian and Luo Ningxuang went on a slaughter, killing countless experts of the divine families. In Long Zhantian's fury, rivers of blood flowed in his wake. With a cultivation base at the 9th heaven stage of heaven merging, he killed the saints of the divine families. As a result, the power that the divine families had been accumulating for countless years was wiped out, with less than a tenth surviving. In the end though, Long Zhantian and Luo Ningxuang were suppressed. What the divine families hadn't expected was that when Luo Ningxuang saw Long Outyen's mother, she suddenly recognized the latter. The two of them were actually mortal enemies. Luo Ningxuang's status was then revealed and the divine families were horrified. Luo Ningxuang was the daughter of an immortal king of the higher world. She had only run away due to a falling out with her family. With Luo Ningxuang's status also revealed, The remaining higher-ups of the divine families were completely enraged. Long Aotian's mother was incredibly sinister, using the divine families to land a blow on Luo Ningxuang. Now, the divine families panicked. Long Aotian's mother's status was too great for them to provoke. But behind Luo Ningxuang was an immortal king, also in existence that they couldn't offend. After a long discussion, the divine families chose to send Luo Ningxuang and Long Zhantian to the higher plane, allowing the people there to handle both of them. They didn't dare to make any judgment on this matter themselves. As a result, the final 2 quotas that the Martial Heaven continent had to send people to the higher plane were used on Long Zhantian and Luo Ningxuang. Due to this, Long Aotian's mother was forced to stay behind. It was at this moment that the Martial Heaven continent lost connection to the higher world. The channel was severed, and as a result, no one knew the current state of Long Zhantian and Luo Ningxuang. On the other hand, Long Aotian and his mother had an easy life afterward. Due to how gravely wounded the divine families were, they were forced to rely on Long Aotian as a supreme genius. The higher-ups were always infuriated whenever they thought of this. If it weren't for this matter, there would be no need for the divine families to go through this play. They might even be able to take all the spoils of this battle for themselves. This was why this matter was considered taboo in the divine families. The only ones who knew were the true higher-ups. Those who knew some of that information and didn't have high enough status were forcibly captured and had their memories of it sealed. As the greatest humiliation the divine families had ever suffered, this taboo topic was something few people knew of, and ordinary people didn't dare to mention it. Hearing all this, Long Chen sighed with relief. His palms were covered in sweat. The situation he had been most afraid of was that his father and mother were already dead. His father was a genius who slew saints at the 9th heaven stage of heaven merging. Considering that this matter couldn't be blamed on his father, the odds that the divine families would execute him were very low. At the very least, they wouldn't kill such a powerful genius. As for his mother, with such a background, they wouldn't dare to kill her. However, although Long Chen knew that their lives had been spared, he was still anxious. They didn't even know if their son was still alive, so they were probably racked with worry about him every day. He didn't know what state they were in after all that worry. Long Chen asked a few more questions about the divine families, including matters about the Starfield's core. However, the Heaven Executioner didn't know too much about this topic. All he knew was that the divine families were simply working together with the other powers. The person with the greatest power would be the one to get the core in the end. There was no fair splitting later on. "Tell me, how do you use your jade pendant?" asked Long Chen suddenly. "Why would you ask that?" The Heaven Executioner screamed once more and quickly told Long Chen how to use the jade pendant. "All right, you can kill me," said the Heaven Executioner. "So you actually dared to scheme against me. You really are asking for it. I was planning on letting you die quickly, but you really want to test me," sneered Long Chen. "If I kill you, your spiritual jade tablet will shatter. Then the divine families will know what happened here. Do you think I'm an idiot like you?" Long Chen reached out and tossed the Heaven Executioner's Yuan spirit toward Lei Linger. She then devoured the Yuan spirit, sealing him within her body. "Let's go. I can bring you out," said the Eastern Wasteland Bell. It had managed to find this place through the crack between 3 minor worlds. "No. I'm going to start my slaughter from here. This is the only place that leads to the ancestral land of the divine families," said Long Chen with frosty killing intent. Is there a meaning to that? Although I've recovered, my power is to be saved for the heaven-devastating bracelet. This relates to the safety of the entire Martial Heaven continent. "You can't mess around," said the Eastern Wasteland Bell. While it understood Long Chen's desire for vengeance, compared to revenge, the safety of the Martial Heaven continent was more important. It was capable of stealthily bringing out Long Chen without the divine family sensing it, and Long Chen would have some time to recover. Simply starting a slaughter was meaningless in comparison. "No, I won't need your power. This blood debt will be personally avenged by me," said Long Chen. A jade pendant appeared in Long Chen's hand. This was the 9-line soul calming jade that his parents had left for him. It was his only keepsake from them. Throughout all these years, when he thought of his parents, he would look at it. The dragon roars at the heavens, looking down arrogantly on the mortal world of dust. Live peacefully and happily, never to be parted. The first line was domineering and grand, the second warm and gentle. They contained the love and hopes of his father and mother. As their son, I will kill those old things that my parents failed to kill. Perhaps they didn't kill them due to familial emotions, but those old things didn't treat me with any of those emotions. There is no family, only a debt to be paid. Long Chen ground his teeth. But you are currently only at the 7th heaven stage. How are you supposed to fight them? Asked the Eastern Wasteland Bell. I won't be that way soon. I really have to thank the Heaven Executioner. He allowed me to comprehend another kind of cultivation. Long Chen reverently put away the jade pendant and sat on the ground. After forming a hand seal, his divine ring appeared behind him, filled with flowing stars. They formed an identical star map to the one inside of his dantian. Now that there was one less star, the star map was active, creating space for endless changes. The heaven-merging realm means to control heaven and earth. The heavenly Daos become mine. Why must I follow other people's path? As Long Chen's hand seal suddenly changed, the stars behind him revolved. The world shuddered as a giant whirlpool appeared in his divine ring, crazily sucking in the power of this entire world. The divine ring was like a gaping maw devouring the world. This world's power could only submit. What a domineering cultivation technique. The Eastern Wasteland Bell muttered to itself. It was shaken by this wild technique. When others absorbed the power of the heavenly Daos, they did it carefully, purifying it and taking in the power that was the correct attribute for them. However, Long Chen was absorbing all the power, not rejecting the slightest bit. Suddenly, Long Chen's divine ring quivered and his aura soared. He reached the 8th heaven stage. After that, the earth began to crack and stones started to crumble. Without the power of the laws of this world, everything was coming undone. 3 days later, this desolate world became even more desolate. It was as if the entire world had died, and all its essence had been sucked away. As for Long Chen's cultivation base, it had reached the 9th heaven stage. After that, Long Chen finally stood and clenched his fist, sensing the power within him. I don't know how I'll cultivate in the future, but at the very least, the heaven-merging realm will be passed easily. It's too bad that this is just a minor world without much power. If this was a major world instead, you would reach the sovereign realm in less than a month, said the Eastern Wasteland Bell. By sucking away all the power of this world, Long Chen's cultivation base had advanced by 2 levels. Such a cultivation technique was something that the Eastern Wasteland Bell had never seen before. It's fine. There are more worlds. The Yin-Yang world, Devil Spirit Mountain, Resentful Death City, the ancient battlefield, I can go for a stroll through all of them, said Long Chen. This place was barren, but those worlds had plenty of energy. Right now, space began to collapse as the laws of space had been sucked away by Long Chen. All of a sudden, a screen of light appeared above Long Chen's head. That was the exit. This exit was originally invisible, but as the laws and energy of this world were sucked away, it revealed itself. Long Chen took out his jade pendant and waved it across the light screen. The exit then opened and Long Chen stepped through. The scene changed and Long Chen appeared within a channel. However, there were people guarding this place. Long Chen was about to wipe them all out when he came to a startled stop. Long Chen hadn't expected that the guards of this place were actually the 8th Heavenly Dragon Legion's warriors. Their leader was Shin Qingfeng. This channel had 8 totems in 8 different locations. The divine families truly viewed Long Chen highly. The world that he was imprisoned in had only 1 entrance to it, but 2 exits. However, one of those exits led to a sure-death formation. Even a saint would be instantly killed upon entering it. As for the exit that he had gone through, that was also the entrance, and it was guarded. There were 8 alarm systems set up, and triggering any one of them would instantly alert the divine families. Long Chen had planned to immediately wipe out all the experts guarding this place upon entering, not giving them a chance to set off the alarm. However, he hadn't expected that the ones guarding this place were the 8th Heavenly Dragon Legion. Shen Chengfeng and the others were dumbfounded. They had no idea what they were guarding. All they knew was that anyone who went past them had to be strictly checked and examined. Normally, it would not be their place to guard such a core location. But the usual guards were receiving some kind of inheritance, so they had taken over their shift for half a day. This half a day resulted in Long Chen running into them. They were aware that Long Chen had been captured, but they had no idea where he was being imprisoned. At this moment, Shen Chengfeng suddenly waved his hand, and a jade pendant flew toward Long Chen. He caught it. Shen Chengfeng sighed. The exit up ahead has 3 paths. Don't take any of them. Pause for a few seconds, and a 4th path will appear. When you reach the end of that path, crush the jade pendant, and take the left of the 3 paths that appear. Long Chen was moved. Shen Chengfeng and the others were willing to betray the divine families to let him free. The divine families truly had many safeguards set up around him. If it weren't for Shen Chengfeng, he might have fallen into their trap. This was a matter that not even the heaven executioner knew. Brother, I'll have to offend you. Long Chen patted Shen Chengfeng's shoulder. After that, his spiritual strength suddenly burst forth, and every expert guarding this place coughed up blood and collapsed. Long Chen also left an appalling wound on Shen Chengfeng's body, making it seem as if Long Chen had given a killing blow, and Shen Chengfeng had only survived due to luck. Following Shen Chengfeng's instructions, Long Chen passed through the channel. After that, his vision brightened and a dense spiritual qi poured over him. It felt like his pores suddenly opened. You dash. As soon as he walked out, 4 of the divine family's experts appeared. Using the side of his hand as a blade, he cut through their throats in an instant. 4 heads flew. It's time for that evil bitch to pay for the past as well as the present. Long Chen walked deeper into the divine family's ancestral land. Deep within the divine family's ancestral land, within a delicate pavilion, Long Outyen's mother was carefully fiddling with something. That something was a crown, whose body was made of sparkling gold. She was currently in the midst of embedding a strange divine gem inside. Outyen has reached the peak of the Saint Realm. He'll quickly become an emperor, and on the day that he wears the crown of a sovereign, the martial heaven continent will be destroyed. I'll have Outyen wear the crown that I personally crafted. Everyone will know he is the true king, and the spawn of that slut is nothing more than a stepping stone for my son. Long Outyen's mother looked at the crown in her hand with satisfaction. Madam is correct. That idiot Luo Ningxuang fell for our trap without even realizing it. What a fool. Once young Master Outyen becomes a sovereign, this Starfield's core will be in our hands. We'll be able to return to the higher plane as heroes, and then we can enjoy the expressions of the Luo family, laughed another woman behind Long Outyen's mother. This woman was also from the higher plane. She had come with Long Outyen's mother. The Ying Prefecture's Luo family has been enemies with my Chu family for 30 million years. Even after forming such a boundless enmity between us, the Luo family still produced such a naive fool like Luo Ningxuang. Her father is a generation's immortal king with both vision and power, but he didn't pass any of these down to his daughter. She's just an idiot. Now even her son has fallen for my trap. I bet the news of Luo Ningxuang and Long Zhantian's expulsion would throw all the face of the Luo family. That's even better than killing her. But her spawn was surprisingly hardy. He actually survived. But I'll definitely have Outyen record cutting off his head. When I return to the higher plane, if Long Zhantian and Luo Ningxuang aren't dead, I'll let them have a chance to see their son again. Long Outyen's mother laughed. You might not have that chance. An icy voice suddenly rang out behind Long Outyen's mother, startling her and the other woman. Long Outyen's mother in particular felt a chill. She turned back to see an image of a merciless death god facing her. At this moment, her soul almost fled in terror. The woman beside her didn't recognize Long Chen and instinctively reached out to grab Long Chen, only to be blasted apart by a single punch. She was only at the 7th heaven stage and wasn't even an ant in front of Long Chen. Save dash! Long Outyen's mother suddenly shouted, his aura exploding as she fled. However, she had barely moved before Long Chen's slap struck her in the face, causing half her face to collapse. She smashed into the ground like a shooting star. While Long Outyen's mother had a high cultivation base, her physical body wasn't particularly powerful. Long Chen's slap had used very little force but still caused her to hack up blood. She struggled up and started rushing away again. "Help! Save me!" A hand flew out of Long Chen's hand, piercing her back and coming out of her chest. She was completely locked down by Long Chen's spiritual strength. She felt like this world had lost all its color. Instead, she was in a black and white nightmare. Behind her wasn't Long Chen, but a fiend in control of this world. Furthermore, this fiendish demon wasn't in a rush to kill her. No, this demon wanted her to experience terror and despair. Countless formations activated at this moment. It was unknown if the divine families had noticed a problem with the channel or if they had been alerted by the disturbance here, but dozens of experts came charging over. They saw Long Outyen's mother fleeing for her life as if she had just seen a ghost. When they looked past her to see Long Chen slowly following, their hearts almost leaped out of their chests. They instantly turned pale. "Save me!" Long Outyen's mother screamed like a dying person who had grasped the last straw of life. However, this trace of hope was quickly extinguished when lightning arrows blasted those experts out of existence. Ah! She herself was also struck by a lightning arrow, but it was weak enough that it only broke her protective divine barrier, causing her to stagger. As she frantically ran away, Long Chen calmly followed behind her like a hunter staring at his prey on its deathbed. They quickly reached a large gate. Long Outyen's mother once more felt hope and rushed over, practically slamming into it. After that, countless bloody ripples appeared on the gate. This place had a powerful formation set up. "Ha, you can't kill me. Don't even think about breaking this formation. You vile spawn, you dash." Her laughter was suddenly cut off when Long Chen waved a 9-line soul-calming jade, causing the formation to open. He easily walked in. How can this be? She was stunned to see this. This formation was something that only the highest-level soul-calming jades of the divine families could open. The number of people who possessed such qualifications definitely did not exceed 10. She did not know that Long Chen's soul-calming jade had been left to him by Long Zhantian. Long Zhantian naturally gave his son the best. Long Chen walked in calmly and kicked her while she simply stood there, stunned. She tumbled back. The other side of this gate was a large empty plaza. This place was bare but clean, and it gave off a somewhat sinister feeling. The scent of blood remained here. This place had clearly been renovated and yet abandoned. Even those renovations were unable to remove the stench of blood. This place had once been the main palace of the divine families. However, due to that battle back then, it had been filled with blood. Countless people died here, even saints, so the air of resentment was too strong, and it had been abandoned. My father and mother must have been subdued here, right? Excellent, this is the best place for your execution. Long Chen examined the surroundings and felt a certain sorrow. However, he felt more rage. Bang! He then sent her flying with another kick. She was already on her last breaths and rolled to the front of the empty palace. Suddenly, the void behind Long Chen shuddered. A golden hand silently appeared, slamming toward Long Chen's back. Long Chen didn't even look back. The power of the stars in his divine ring flowed out, and he caught the golden hand that appeared. With a cold snort, Long Chen reached and grabbed the golden hand with his hand, dragging its master out of the void. Boom! Startled cries rang out from the divine family's experts when they saw the Lord Saint be pulled out. Long Chen then smashed him to the ground, causing the entire palace to shake. The Lord Saint had rushed over immediately and had chosen to launch a sneak attack with almost no hesitation. However, he hadn't expected that the current Long Chen was no longer the old Long Chen. He was instantly caught. Only at that time did he realize that Long Chen's realm had shockingly risen to the 9th heaven stage. At this moment, the Lord Saint made the prompt decision to cut off his own arm to escape Long Chen's grasp. He rolled away. Although it wasn't dignified, his years of experience told him that any hesitation would be fatal. Just as he was preparing to withdraw, a lightning spear pierced through his body, and a small figure appeared behind the Lord Saint. Ling stared at him icily, raising him into the air. Countless experts now filled this palace. Their weapons were drawn, but no one dared to make a move. Their Lord Saint had been instantly captured by Long Chen. They were dumbfounded. Long Chen turned to stare at the horrified Lord Saint. With a mocking smile, he said, "There was a path to heaven and no doors to hell, yet you still jumped in yourself. You threw yourself into my hands. Were you a victim to your own intelligence? Or is this to say that you finally grew a conscience and came to atone for your sins?" Everything was going smoother than he had expected. Long Chen had thought that it would take more than 10 exchanges before he had a chance to capture the Lord Saint. If it weren't for Long Zhantian being too soft-hearted and being sneak-attacked, he might not have lost to people like this. This Lord Saint was truly stupid. In order to cut off his own arm, he had to weaken his physical body to the point that it could be cut off. Considering just how powerful his physical body was, how could an arm be cut off just by willing it? Thus, when his arm was cut off, his body was in its weakest state. He had only been on guard against Long Chen but not against Ling who had merged with the void. As a result, the instant he cut off his arm, Ling struck, easily capturing him. "I didn't think that you would be able to escape," sighed the Lord Saint. Even with his life in Long Chen's hands, he was surprisingly calm. "There are more things that you didn't think of. If you weren't so greedy for my secrets and instead directly killed me, this result wouldn't have occurred." Long Chen smiled indifferently. "You are, after all, Long Zhantian's son, a member of my Long family. How could I really kill you?" said the Lord Saint. Hearing this, Long Chen slapped him in the face. As a result, blood flowed down his face. "Long Chen." The Divine Family's experts were infuriated, and 3 saints appeared in their midst. "Do you want to come over and try it? I'll immediately kill the 2 of them." Long Chen snorted coldly. Those experts instantly became cowardly. They glared at Long Chen, clenching their weapons. Moreover, they were so furious that it looked like they were just a bit away from charging over and killing him. Seeing that they didn't dare to make any rash movements, Long Chen took out a spear and tossed it to the side. In the distance, Long Outyen's mother screamed. She had been preparing to charge out, but this spear from Long Chen nailed her to a stone pillar, making her unable to move. Only then did Long Chen return his focus to the Lord Saint. "Do you know why I hit you?" The Lord Saint smiled and indifferently said, "If you want to kill me, then kill me. After all, I couldn't protect your father that year either. If you kill me, I can die without regrets." Long Chen slapped him once more, making the other half of his face just as bloody as the first half. The Divine Family's experts burst into furious roars. The Lord Saint was the leader of the Divine Families, so these slaps were slaps in the face of the Divine Families, the greatest humiliation. However, with his life in Long Chen's hands, they didn't dare to move. They secretly began gathering people, completely locking down this location, as well as alerting the other worlds. Most importantly, people had gone to report this to Long Outyen. Although he was in seclusion, if he happened to come out, he could still come. However, no one dared to charge into his seclusion room. If he was startled out of his cultivation state, then a light backlash would be being injured by the heavenly Daos. A heavy backlash would be death. Although they were panicked, they were still thinking of ways to stall Long Chen. It would be best if they could keep him here until Long Outyen came out, or perhaps until another expert on Long Outyen's level came. After finishing his slap, Long Chen said, "Hitting you has nothing to do with my father. He didn't kill you because he had his reasons, but I have no such reasons. I hit you because I'm testing just how thick your face is. This impervious skin could make an excellent shield. My father was probably tricked by your hypocritical act precisely due to how thick this skin is. My father spared your life back then, yet you still acted like this to me. That's enough to testify to your character. Now you continue acting so fake in front of me. I'm very curious, just what is your skin made out of? Perhaps my father had some fond memories of you due to growing up within the Divine Families, but I don't. I have no such feelings, only a bone-deep hatred. This act of yours is useless against me. It would be best if you didn't make me so disgusted with this act. Don't force me to use the heaven executioner's techniques on you. My father might have been a gentleman, but I, Long Chen, am not. You're under my trial. It would be best if you were more honest, or I guarantee that death will become a luxury for you. The Lord Saint gradually showed some fear at this. Long Chen was not Long Zhantian. The same stratagem from back then could not be used again. I saved your father's life back then. If it weren't for me, said the Lord Saint darkly. Shut up. My father only spared you due to a little favor between you. That has long since been repaid, shouted Long Chen. Suddenly, the void shuddered and the laws of the heavenly Tao split open. A figure descended from the sky, and a spear spread a supreme heavenly might around this world, locking onto Long Chen. Long Outyen, you finally arrived? I've been waiting a long time for you. Long Chen smiled. That faint smile was very icy, very dangerous. It was Long Outyen who had come with endless heavenly might. A trace of an emperor's aura exuded from his body. With a wave of his hand, the void was torn asunder and the heavenly Daos were suppressed. Long Outyen was furious. He had been in the midst of breaking through to the 12th heaven stage, the Emperor realm. But at that critical time, he had been disturbed and had no choice but to cease his breakthrough. Furthermore, he paid quite a price just to stabilize his realm at the half-step Emperor realm. In his fury, he directly killed the two people who had disturbed him. He then activated a soul search to learn what had happened. After that, when he saw his mother nailed to a pillar, screaming, his hair stood on end from fury. He immediately attacked, not holding anything back. Seeing him arrive, Long Chen smiled coldly. Even if Long Outyen was already a half-step emperor, Long Chen still didn't fear this opponent that he had defeated. Long Chen grabbed Long Outyen's mother from the stone pillar and turned her into a meat shield in front of him. Long Chen, you're despicable. Long Outyen was furious, not expecting Long Chen to actually use his mother as a shield. He hastily pulled back the power of his dragon spear. As a result, he coughed up blood. A full power attack could not be pulled back at the last minute like that. It was a taboo in battle. He had essentially just attacked himself. Staggering back, Long Outyen wiped some blood off of his mouth. He pointed his spear at Long Chen angrily. If you're a man, you'll have an honorable battle with me. Honorable? Ha! Long Chen laughed thunderously. He disdainfully said, I'm amazed you could say such a word from your mouth. Did this slut act honorably toward my mother back then? Your entire family is so evil that they didn't even let off a newly born baby. They took my spirit blood, spirit root, and spirit bone, placing them in your body. For your own plots, you've left me to suffer, causing me to be separated from my parents. It's unknown if they're even alive. My father and mother were strong enough that all the experts of the divine families were unable to suppress them without using despicable tricks. How was that honorable? Was that the act of a man? It seems that other than my father and myself, the Long family doesn't have another real man. Long Chen's voice contained the power of his astral energy, and it thundered out of the formation sealing this place, spreading throughout every corner of the divine families. The disciples of the divine families were startled to hear this. They had no idea what had happened back then. Those that had been alive back then had been told to hide by the higher-ups. Hence, only now did the disciples learn about Long Chen's origins. They were all aware of his name, but not that he had been the main character of the huge secret that had become taboo in the divine families from back then. Although the divine families had locked down all the information about it and had not permitted people to discuss it, who wouldn't be curious about such a major affair? While no one dared to talk about it openly, there were plenty of people discussing it behind closed doors. But since only the core members knew about it, and since over 90% of the divine family's experts had died overnight, all people could come up with were countless guesses. There were many guesses, many versions of various stories. However, the ones who knew the truth couldn't say anything because they didn't dare to. Of course, during Long Chen's tribulation, some people had seen some threads relating to this story. Now that Long Chen had fully uncovered this secret, the mystery of Long Zhantian and Luo Ningxuang's sudden disappearance also became clear. People were filled with disbelief. Although they had heard countless hypotheses, the truth was far bloodier, far crueler than they could have guessed. They couldn't accept such a thing. The official story that the divine families announced was that a divine devil that they had been sealing had broken free, and all their experts had fought to the death to slay it. Supposedly, Long Zhantian and Luo Ningxuang had been killed by it. With this tragedy exposed, as disciples of the divine families, they couldn't believe that their higher-ups would be so devoid of conscience. In the divine pill division, the pill doyen stood at the peak of a pavilion, his hands clasped behind him. He stared into the depths of the ancestral lands, at the ancestral palace that Long Chen was in. There was a slightly complicated look in his eyes. How unexpected! Truly unexpected. Yi Qian was standing beside the pill doyen, staring as well. He was filled with shock. It was unknown if he thought it was unexpected that the divine families had been so shameless back then, or if it was unexpected that Long Chen could escape. "Qian, make your preparations. We will not participate in this matter," said the pill doyen. "Yes." Yi Qian nodded and left. The pill doyen muttered to himself, "As expected, someone with the pill sovereign's divine radiance won't die so easily. The divine pill division will not be dragged down by this. Leaving a path to retreat leaves room for the future." The higher-ups of the divine families all had ugly expressions now. Long Chen's voice had spread throughout the divine families, essentially ripping open a painful scar. "Long Chen, since you admit that you are a member of the Long family, do you think that your actions today are appropriate? You have no idea the cause of what happened back then. Why do you think you could leave alive? Wasn't it because of us?" shouted Deputy Elder Long angrily. Long Chen was startled. It was true. He still had no idea how he had escaped that calamity. The Heaven Executioner also hadn't known. Hence, his heart instantly fell. A person shouldn't be so shameless. Does the reason Long Chen could escape have the slightest bit to do with you? Just at this moment, a voice rang out. Unexpectedly, it was Elder Long. Deputy Elder Long angrily shouted, "Long Qiao, have you gone mad?" He had always trusted Elder Long and viewed him highly despite his talent only being ordinary. He was sharp and most importantly extremely loyal. Hence, the Deputy Elder hadn't expected him to suddenly come out now. Elder Long slowly walked over to Long Chen. He said, "Seeing you already grown up, I'm happy. It can be said that I accomplished my promise from back then. There is no longer any need to hide anything. It was my sons who managed to take you out, and my youngest who sent you away. I stole the Deputy Elder's insignia back then and had my son disguise himself. He muddled his way into the Heaven Executioner's abode to take you out. I had 7 sons, and I personally watched as their spiritual plates shattered one by one. Fortunately, they accomplished their mission to send you away in the end." Elder Long's voice was calm, but without being aware of it, tears were flowing down his cheek. Only now did Long Chen learn who the person that had saved him was. It was Elder Long and his sons. "I retract what I just said. Other than my father and myself, the Long family has another real man." "Elder Qiao, you traitor!" The Deputy Elder was infuriated, pointing and cursing at Elder Long. He hadn't expected that the one to leave this calamity alive was actually Elder Long. Suddenly, a streak of light flew out, piercing the Deputy Elder's head and killing him. Long Chen killed the Deputy Elder effortlessly, and no one managed to react before the latter was already dead. Everyone's expression changed. Only now did they realize that this place was now full of thunder force. They were already within Lei Linger's lightning domain. That attack had come from Lei Linger. She didn't even need to move in order to kill the Deputy Elder. Within her domain, amongst the mid-heaven merging realm and below, only a few people were capable of escaping her killing blow. "Senior, please accept my kowtow." Considering that Elder Long was the one who had saved him, Long Chen was filled with gratitude. However, before he could pay his respects, Elder Long stopped him. "Child, from the moment I laid eyes on you, I recognized who you were. You are just like your father. You're both incredibly stubborn, refusing to lower your heads to anyone. I knew that you would come for revenge. I waited a long time, and now I'm finally free. I can rejoin my family." Elder Long patted Long Chen's shoulder. Senior, you. Elder Long smiled at Long Chen and then pointed to the divine family's experts. My family in the generation above is already dead. My 7 sons died and my wife passed away in grief. As for me, the only reason I waited to this day is to personally witness Long Zhantian's son return for his vengeance. Long Qiao, you are a traitor, roared one of the saints of the divine families, enraged. A traitor? I suppose. Elder Long indifferently nodded. Back then, Long Zhantian saved my life on the battlefield. The reason I saved Long Chen was partially to return Long Zhantian's favor. Other than that, Long Zhantian was an unrivaled hero. If his son died to such petty little people, it would be far too unjust. Perhaps you are unaware of it, but while Long Zhantian was a coarse and rough person, causing many people to think of him as nothing more than a brute, he was far more intelligent and scrupulous than people gave him credit for. He naturally entered a rage when he learned that his son had been harmed, but once you suppressed him, he grew cool-headed. He realized that his son had probably yet to be killed. However, he knew that afterward, you would definitely treat his son as a hostage to be used against him, so he sent me a spiritual message asking me to save his son. I did it. Now, I have nothing else tying me to this world. I have accomplished my promise to Long Zhantian, so I can leave now. Senior, why must you do this? Asked Long Chen, his voice quivering slightly. Child, there are some things that you do not and cannot understand. When a person loses all their belief, every living day is a pain. I was originally planning on personally watching your vengeance, but in the end, I am still a member of the divine families. Although I detest this family full of darkness, cold-bloodedness, hypocrisy, and heartlessness, I'm unable to watch this with any joy. However, even if I don't watch, what's the result? Just like that, Elder Long closed his eyes, his aura dissipating. Shocked, Long Chen hastily grabbed him, only to find that the fire of his soul had extinguished. This was not a suicide. He simply naturally died. When the last thing sustaining him disappeared, his spirit crumbled. Seeing his old face, thinking of the care he had shown him during this time, thinking of how he had saved him and lost everything in return, Long Chen couldn't stop tears from flowing out of his eyes. If Elder Long had been on the battlefield back then, it meant that he and his father were enemies at that time. But even while being enemies, when Long Zhantian realized the crisis, he reached out to Elder Long, and Elder Long agreed without hesitation. Moreover, even after paying such a painful price, he had never regretted it. Why? Long Chen suddenly let out a roar, causing the heavens to change color. This roar emitted endless resentment. It contained the power of his stars, the resentment in his heart. Hence, every expert present was shaken. Those with weaker cultivation bases even coughed up blood. Why was it that good people always had terrible fates? Why was it that bad people always got away lightly? Elder Long had lived such a bitter life all these years, but every bad person he saw before him was living happily. This world was too unfair. Long Chen hugged Elder Long. He didn't feel such deep emotions for him necessarily, as they didn't have a close bloodline connection. But Elder Long had essentially sacrificed his entire family for a promise, not regretting it even in death. This was a real man. After that, Long Chen carefully put Elder Long's body away and wiped away his tears. He looked around and noticed that more people had come. Feng Fei, Yi Liangchen, and Jiang Wuchen had arrived. They had also been in seclusion. Every single one of them had powerful auras, having advanced to the Saint Realm. Yi Liangchen and Jiang Wuchen both glared at him sharply. They clearly thought that this was their best chance to kill Long Chen. Only Feng Fei looked at him with a complicated expression. She still had a sense of right and wrong. In this aspect, she was 100 times stronger than Zhao Ritian, Yi Liangchen, Jiang Wuchen, and Long Outyan. Regretfully, her sense of right and wrong didn't matter. Long Chen was now the mortal enemy of the divine families. Furthermore, the divine family's position was now fully clear. She also understood their mission of seizing the heavens. The current her no longer had the luxury of standing on the side of the right. Unlike during the tribulation, she had to stand on the side of the divine families. There was no right or wrong, only what was beneficial to the divine families. Anything else was a betrayal. Long Chen, what do you want? Demanded Long Outyin. At this moment, Long Chen was ignoring them all. He turned to the Lord Saint, who was still pierced by Lei Linger's lightning spear, not daring to move. Any strange movement and Lei Linger would instantly kill him. Hence, when Long Chen stood in front of him, he finally felt fear. He could sense Long Chen's determination to kill him. Long Chen, don't kill me. I can tell you how to find your parents, said the Lord Saint. Their leader, the Grand Lord Saint, was actually begging an enemy. The divine family's experts' expressions changed. This was a huge humiliation to them. Long Chen sneered, "You're finally afraid of dying? If you're afraid, why did you court death? Someone who courts death always thinks that they won't die. That's why you acted so fearlessly. Do you know why I came here? Today, I'll announce the judgment to your trial here, the place where you committed your sins, where my father and mother's blood flowed." In front of countless experts, a lightning sword appeared in Long Chen's hand, and he slashed it at the Lord Saint's neck. Beheading was a humiliating form of death. In the secular world, it was only used for those who had committed the most heinous crimes or against those with deep enmities. They would make sure that the dead didn't have a complete corpse. On the other hand, in the cultivation world, dying without a complete corpse was common. One person could kill the other with a single punch, blasting them to pieces. But to intentionally behead someone wasn't very commonly seen. Without a certain level of hatred, no one would use such a method. However, today Long Chen did it. He had thousands of ways to kill the Lord Saint, but he chose this way. Long Chen. The divine family's experts roared furiously. Long Chen had beheaded the Lord Saint in front of all of them. That was a huge insult. Long Outyen's spear trembled, but he didn't move. That was because his mother was still in Long Chen's hands. He was dragging her like a dead dog. Long Outyen clenched his teeth, but he didn't have any method. No carrot or stick would work on Long Chen. No one could change his mind on what he had decided, not even a god. Furthermore, Long Chen was a madman. No one could tell what a madman would do. After escaping his prison, instead of fleeing, he actually came directly to the core of the divine families to cause a ruckus. Even though the experts of the other worlds were also rushing over, Long Chen seemed not to care. Long Outyen wanted to save his mother. While he was relatively indifferent to his father, he depended on his mother. His current achievements today were all thanks to her. It could be said that his path in life had been personally paved by her. That included his path in the future, which involved ascending to a higher plane. His mother had arranged all of it. All her hopes were on him, and she showed her love to him in 100 different ways. Long Outyen almost broke down several times and charged out, but knowing that Long Chen could kill her with just a thought, he didn't move. "Long Chen, what do you want to release my mother?" demanded Long Outyen. "You want me to release your mother? That's easy. As long as you hand over what you owe me, I'll give her to you," said Long Chen indifferently. "That's impossible. I would become a cripple," raged Long Outyen. "Haha." Long Chen laughed before his face suddenly became harsh. "So even for an adult like you, taking your spirit root, spirit blood, and spirit bone would be crippling? So how did your side manage to do that to me when I was just a baby? Now you want me to let your mother off? Did she ever think about letting me or my entire family off?" The divine family's outer experts were in an uproar over hearing Long Outyen personally admit to this. They couldn't help being disappointed. While they could mostly guess what had happened back then, it was hard to hear that their greatest genius was only a genius due to stealing from Long Chen. On the other hand, even after being crippled, Long Chen had still reached the peak of the martial path. A crippled person who had fallen to a small secular nation and had been forced to fight for every scrap of resources he could get, versus someone in the divine families who had resources thrown at him and got everything he wanted. The two of them were worlds apart. But which one was the true expert? It was someone who had their wings clipped and still soared through the heavens. In this world, reasons and logic cannot be found through discussion. Some people will only understand what pain is when they themselves are beaten. Foolish people will only understand what it means to respect others at that time. All of you have seen others in pain, so you can enjoy watching them suffer. Today, I'll let you taste what that feels like. Long Chun turned to Long Outyen's mother. You evil bitch. You were the main ringleader in all this. My family was destroyed by you. Normally, I'd rip off your skin, tear out your tendons, and grind your bones to dust, but I disdain doing such a thing to a woman. Instead, I let you run, let you see hope. But what I want you to experience is seeing hope right up ahead and not being able to grasp it. Today, even if a god descends, they won't be able to save your life. Today, I will give you your final judgment for what you did that day. Long Chun suddenly twisted his hand, and her Yuan spirit was pulled out of her body. At that moment, flames burst into existence, burning her Yuan spirit. Ah! Long Outyen's mother screamed. This was a torture that not even the heaven executioner had been able to bear, let alone her. Long Chen. Long Outyen roared furiously. He knew that Long Chen was dead set on killing his mother, but he was unable to save her. All he could do was kill Long Chen as vengeance for her. Pressed to his limit, Long Outyen furiously attacked, his dragon spear stabbing toward Long Chen. Long Chen snorted and threw the Yuan spirit in his hand toward the tip of the spear. No! Long Outyen's mother let out a sharp screech. Long Chen was so hateful that he wanted her to die to her own son's hands. Long Outyen seemed to know that Long Chen would do this. Although his attack looked to be at full power, he actually held back a great deal. Delighted to see his mother's Yuan spirit flying toward him, he immediately reached out to grab her. However, afraid of Long Chen suddenly attacking, he immediately retreated after grabbing his mother's Yuan spirit. But then his expression changed. How can this be? Long Outyen's mother began to crack unwillingly. Long Outyen was also dumbfounded. He had clearly caught her, so how could it have been a failure? His mother's Yuan spirit slowly faded. I told you that I would let you see hope only for you to not be able to grasp it. Didn't you say you wanted to send a recording of my death to my mother so she could see how grown up I've become? I suppose sending your Yuan spirit to your son doesn't count as going too far, said Long Chen indifferently. How can this be? I don't want to die. I can't die. Long Outyen's mother struggled, but it was useless. Even with Long Outyen using all his abilities, he couldn't stop her Yuan spirit from dissipating. Finally, her Yuan spirit broke apart. With a terrified, unwilling, and perhaps even a slightly regretful expression, her life came to an end. Mom? Long Outyen let out a wild roar. He hadn't reacted like this when Long Chen killed his father. But he went insane as soon as his mother died in front of him. Long Chen, I'll tear you to pieces. Long Outyen roared and attacked. As soon as Long Outyen attacked, the other experts of the divine families entered the formation, completely sealing this place. At the same time, Long Chen waved his hand, and Lei Linger transformed into a lightning blade similar to Evil Moon in his hand. Boom! When Long Chen slashed his saber, lightning exploded and the ground beneath his feet quaked. The palace began to crumble. This grand palace was the divine family's ancestral palace. It had countless formations and restrictions around it. Even in Long Zhantian's battle back then, when he slaughtered the divine family's experts, this palace had managed to survive. However, now the palace was crumbling, unable to endure this power. The powerful winds forced the other experts to retreat. Long Chen was blocking Long Outyen's spear with his lightning blade. Meanwhile, countless stars lit up within his divine ring. No matter how Long Outyen tried, he was unable to shake Long Chen. Do you know pain now? Anger? Resentment? No, this isn't enough. This is far from enough. Back then, my father had clearly reached the realm of a saint, but due to your father's insidious sneak attack, his realm was forcibly suppressed to the 9th heaven stage. If it weren't for that bastard playing the family card, causing my father to be soft-hearted, could the divine families have ever suppressed him? His realm was suppressed and his entire family betrayed him. His son's very life was in question. Just how much anger must he have felt at that time? Just how much resentment must he have felt? Long Chen's voice was icy at the start, but it grew more emotional toward the end, until he was in a furious rage. He hadn't witnessed the battle back then. Everything he knew was from the Heaven Executioner's mouth. But it felt as if it was happening right now. His father and mother had bled for him right in this place. They had suffered here. It felt as if he had returned to that year. He could almost see his parents' fury and their helplessness. Boom. Long Outyin couldn't endure it any longer and was gradually being forced back by Long Chen's rising torrential aura. With every step back, the void exploded. All the Divine Family's experts were stunned. Long Chen was clearly only at the 9th heaven stage, and yet he could force back Long Outyin, who was already a half-step emperor. My cultivation base is still in the 9th heaven stage. Today, I will represent my father in getting justice from the Divine Families. Finally, Long Chen's power erupted, and Long Outyin was no longer able to endure. He was sent flying. The Divine Family's saints immediately attacked, using their sharpest, most ruthless attacks altogether. Boom. Long Chen sneered. At this moment, starlight appeared on his lightning blade. With a single slash, those 3 saints' attacks crumbled and the 3 of them coughed up blood. The wounds my father inflicted on you have yet to heal even now? If you're so useless, what's the point of you living? As Long Chen stepped toward those 3 saints, their expressions completely changed. Long Chen was even more terrifying than Long Zhantian. He had locked them down with his spiritual strength. Boom. Suddenly, a ray of divine light shot out from their grand formation. However, it had just appeared before it was shattered. The 3 elders used that opportunity to escape his lock. However, they had just moved when one of them had his head cut off by Long Chen's blade. His head fell to the ground, his soul destroyed. One of the ringleaders of that matter back then was executed just like that. After that, Long Chen walked toward the other 2. All the Divine Family's experts were dumbfounded. They had originally been thinking that together, they would instantly slaughter Long Chen. They had millions of heaven-merging experts, with over 800,000 being in the late stage. With these numbers, they could at least slowly crush him. In fact, they had even thought that with Long Outyin present, he would be able to directly kill Long Chen with no outside help. However, even as a half-step emperor, Long Outyin was not able to match Long Chen's power at the 9th heaven stage. At this moment, a starry sword suddenly slashed down from the heavens, and the sharp will of the sword Dao appeared. It was Yi Liangchen unleashing his strongest attack. When it comes to astral power, you don't understand any of the profundities. When it comes to the sword Dao, all you are is a copy. Yet you still think of trying to merge them? Long Chen snorted, and without even looking back, he raised his palm behind him. A star diagram then appeared in his palm, and he caught Yi Liangchen's divine sword barehanded. Boom. Just like that, his palm collided against Yi Liangchen's divine star sword. As the power of Long Chen's stars erupted, Yi Liangchen's sword instantly shattered. Even his sword arm was destroyed. After blocking Yi Liangchen with his left hand, Long Chen's right hand swung the lightning blade at the other saint. That saint that was doing his best to flee had his head severed. One head soared into the air with an unreconciled expression. A generation's saint died just like that. Feng Fei and Jiang Wuchen's attacks came at that moment. Looking at them, Long Chen snorted and swung his blade. As a result, both of them were sent flying, coughing up blood. How can this be? Jiang Wuchen felt a mix of shock and rage. He had recently become a saint and thought that with his heaven-merging power, he would be able to beat Long Chen. However, despite their difference in realm growing greater, their difference in power also grew more and more. No matter how he trained, he was unable to prevent Long Chen from creating a giant gap between them. In their first battle, he had been able to fight Long Chen. Now that he had advanced to the Saint realm, with his cultivation base surpassing Long Chen, he couldn't receive a single blow from the latter. Feng Fei was pale. The majority of Long Chen's attack just now had been blocked by Jiang Wuchen, but she was still injured. It was because she was a soul cultivator. Long Chen's attack contained a supreme will that damaged her soul. The final member of the 3 saints of the Divine Families fled. However, just as he was about to enter the crowd, Long Chen raised his hand and the world froze. Following that, the old saint involuntarily flew toward Long Chen. "No!" The saint cried out in terror as he involuntarily flew back at Long Chen. Long Chen's lightning blade then swung through the air, aiming for his neck. The lightning blade met his neck, turning him into a corpse. It wasn't just his physical body that was killed, but his soul was also sliced through. All the saints that had fought Long Zhantian back then were now dead. Emperor blood devouring, 9 dragon slaughter. Suddenly, an illusory image of an emperor's crown appeared on Long Outyen's head, and his body split into 9. His manifestation's 9 dragons flew toward Long Chen. After that, the 9 Long Aotians vanished, merging into the 9 dragons. Right now, the formations of the divine families shuddered. This attack had sucked away the power of this entire world. Yi Liangchen and the others turned pale, hastily retreating to avoid being sucked into this terrifying attack. Long Chen, that... Long Outyen roared furiously. The 9 dragons smashed into Long Chen from 9 different directions, striking him like meteors. A wailing sound rang out as heaven and earth were unable to bear the pressure of the 9 dragons. As a result, the ancestral lands of the divine families began to fracture. Their experts fled for their lives. As for Long Outyen, he had activated his newly condensed emperor blood to unleash this terrifying attack. Boom! With Long Chen at the core, the ancestral lands collapsed. The bricks and formations laid on them turned to dust. Even before the attack arrived, the emperor's pressure had crashed down. The space around Long Chen twisted and turned. In the face of this terrifying attack, even the spatial wall of this world was as flimsy as paper. One wrong move and Long Chen would be sucked into the chaotic flow of space, forever vanishing from this world. All cultivation techniques are garbage in front of the 9-star hegemon body art. My star diagram has already awakened. Even if you had become a real emperor, would you be able to do anything to me? A dragon roar suddenly rang out from within Long Chen's body. White dragon scales covered his skin. Boom! The 9 dragons crashed down upon his body. As a result, Long Chen's scales instantly became covered in tiny cracks. Long Outyen sneered, "Your azure dragon essence blood has been sucked away by me, and my 9 ancestral dragon souls have grown stronger once more. As for you, you will die at my hands." Long Chen suddenly recalled that his essence blood had been almost sucked dry by the Heaven Executioner. So it had been absorbed by Long Outyen. His current Azure Dragon battle armor didn't have the essence blood to back it, causing its power to drop. On the other hand, Long Outyen's dragon might had increased. Long Chen snorted. All of a sudden, a star condensed within every single one of his scales. Originally, his 108,000 stars matched his 108,000 scales. Now that there was 1 star fewer, the stars moved around his scales, linking together with his divine ring and forming a layer of divine light around his body. The 9 dragons crashed into this layer of divine light but were unable to break it. Long Outyen was startled. His dragons began to claw at the light. Although the surrounding space repeatedly exploded, the dragons were unable to break Long Chen's defenses. Long Outyen then grew crazy with rage. This technique was something he was only capable of using by sacrificing his new emperor blood. It had the power to destroy heaven and earth, but it couldn't destroy Long Chen's defenses. This fact was almost enough to cause despair. It seems that I was treating the 9-star hegemon body art too shallowly. It is not just a cultivation technique, it can almost manifest as any magical art. Mastering this one technique is mastering 10,000 techniques. The different manifestations are changed with the heart. Long Chen was wrapped in a new comprehension of the 9-star hegemon body art. The power of his stars could transform into anything. They even manifested themselves within his scales. Ever since the Heaven Executioner had crushed one of his stars, he had kept an eye on their changes, but he was unable to see any pattern. Right now, he had yet to fully understand how to use his star diagram. But the more he used the power of his stars, the more he understood. It can defend on defense and attack on offense. Long Chun suddenly unleashed a punch, and his star diagram appeared on his fist. The dragon he struck exploded. After that, starlight filled the air, illuminating the heavens. With one dragon destroyed, the other 8 shuddered and merged into one. Long Outyen's figure reappeared, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. His 9 dragon slaughter had been defeated, so he was filled with shock. His power contained this world's strongest laws, but Long Chen's power was not affected by any of the restrictions of the laws. That was a different and terrifying power. As the star diagram in Long Chen's divine ring circulated, Long Chen stepped in the air and shot toward the shocked Long Outyen. The void shuddered in his wake. In return, Long Outyen roared and his dragon spear erupted with light. His manifestation rumbled. Facing this attack, Long Chen stamped a foot at Long Outyen, and his star diagram appeared on his foot like a river of stars. His foot then smashed into the dragon spear, and Long Outyen let out a muffled grunt as he was kicked into the earth. The earth exploded, unleashing a wild gale. The surrounding mountains and buildings were torn apart by that wind. "Are you a saint? Or a skank?" Long Chen sneered. After awakening the power of his stars, he was gradually sensing just how terrifying the 9-star He-Gem body art was. This power should be described as practically dreadful. It surpassed the power of an entire world. With this kind of power, there was no need to cultivate any magical arts or battle skills. Just the power of his stars would be enough to flatten anyone. This power came from the self and was not limited by any laws. As long as his astral power was strong enough, even a god or immortal could be slain. Right now, Long Outyen was being completely crushed. The two of them were not even on the same level. The Divine Family's experts were all dumbfounded. Just what had Long Chen gone through in order to become such a monster? Suddenly, strange cracking sounds rang out. Everyone's expressions changed as they saw the foundation of the ancestral palace begin to crack. Those cracks rapidly spread far into the distance. Not good. The core of this world is breaking. A startled cry rang out. Once the core was destroyed, this world would also disappear. No, this aura is... Rays of immortal light began to appear from within the cracks. Immortal mist flooded this world. The immortal sealing palace has been opened. Several of the elders' expressions changed. The immortal sealing palace was forbidden territory in the divine families. It was an absolute secret known only to a select few. Other than the saints, those qualified to know of its existence did not number more than 10. Theoretically, with the death of the saints at Long Chen's hand, the immortal sealing palace should have remained hidden forever. Unexpectedly, Long Chen's attack had caused it to rise. Immortal qi gushed out of the cracks, and a grand majestic palace gradually rose out of the ground. Long Outyen stood on top of the immortal palace, covered in blood. His shocked expression showed that he clearly didn't know about this palace either. He had been kicked deep underground by Long Chen and inadvertently crashed into the immortal sealing palace. His blood had caused it to activate. This thing doesn't belong to this world. It's incredibly heretical. Long Chen, you have to be careful, transmitted the Eastern Wasteland Bell. The Eastern Wasteland Bell sensed just how strange this palace was. It looks like immortal qi, but it's actually dark ghost qi. There's definitely nothing good inside. Long Chen nodded. This immortal sealing palace was extremely strange. He sensed it as well. However, he wasn't afraid. The more secrets of the divine families that he unearthed, the better it would be for him. It wasn't the opponents that you could see that were frightening. What was frightening was the unknown. Suddenly, the gates to the palace opened and an elder wearing odd robes walked out. "It's an immortal corpse," exclaimed the Eastern Wasteland Bell. This strange elder was surrounded by immortal qi, but he had no spiritual fluctuations. The Eastern Wasteland Bell's exclamation made Long Chen realize that this was just a corpse. However, that was not noticeable just from the outside appearance. This is an immortal corpse puppet that came from the immortal world. It seems that this immortal sealing palace is the divine family's hidden trump card. The ones capable of activating it were already killed by you, but it seems that you accidentally opened it just now. This luck. The Eastern Wasteland Bell was speechless. This trump card should have died in the pits of the divine families. However, it had been uncovered by Long Chen. It seemed that Long Chen's overwhelming bad luck had yet to take a turn for the better. The elder looked around, his eyes were vacant. His gaze suddenly landed on Long Outyin. Your old slave greets master. The elder knelt toward Long Outyin. Startled, Long Outyin suddenly thought of something and took out a dragon-shaped tablet. He spat some fresh blood onto it, and a dragon-shaped mark appeared on the elder's forehead, identical to the tablet. Kill him for me! Long Outyin shouted. Only now did he recall that in the past few days, his mother had made the saints of the divine families carry out an important ceremony. The next day, she gave him this tablet. His mother had only told him that this tablet was related to a huge secret of the divine families, and to take care of it. This tablet now formed a connection with the elder once he placed his essence blood on it. The next moment, the elder's gaze was no longer vacant. As soon as Long Outyin gave his order, the elder didn't hesitate. He instantly appeared in front of Long Chen, using some unknown movement art. He was like a phantom. The elder unleashed a punch that looked simple, but it caused space to collapse. What a powerful physical body! Long Chen was startled. In terms of pure physical power, Long Chen had never seen anyone reach such a level. That terrifying physical strength aroused Long Chen's battle intent. Rather than dodging, he unleashed his own punch. Boom! The two fists collided, shaking the world. After that, both their sleeves blew apart, the tatters flying through the air like butterflies. As chi waves exploded from their fists, the stars in the sky quivered and black threads appeared in the void. Those were terrifying spatial cracks. Dragon scales covered Long Chen's fist, and runes flowed over his fist along with divine light, unleashing boundless power. As for the elder, once his sleeve was blown away, people saw that his arm was covered in bizarre runes. Immortal light shone from those runes. Long Chen was like a mountain in the sky. Despite the elder's efforts, he was unable to shake Long Chen. However, Long Chen was filled with shock. This elder's power was extremely odd. It was also a kind of power that didn't belong to this world. The Eastern Wasteland Bell transmitted, this person was sealed in the immortal world, transformed into a puppet, and sent down to this lower plane. Due to the wall of ascension, anyone alive has a low chance of passing through. But for a dead person, it's a bit easier. However, even if it's a puppet, it needs to possess a certain spirituality in order to unleash its power. That's why this kind of immortal corpse must go through careful selection before being sent, and the price to send it to a lower plane is immense. This immortal sealing palace should be its home. Only inside it can it guarantee that his immortal chi doesn't flow away too quickly. However, once it starts fighting, its immortal chi will slowly dissipate, and it will not be able to replenish it. As long as you can stall it, you will easily get the advantage over time. What is his cultivation base? Asked Long Chen. According to the martial heaven continent's realms, he should be at the 11th heaven stage of heaven merging, so the Saint Realm, said the Eastern Wasteland Bell. Just the Saint Realm and he's so powerful? Long Chen was startled. What are you thinking? He came from the immortal world. The laws there are completely different from here. They are born with immortal spiritual chi nourishing them. Everything they eat, drink, and breathe has a qualitative difference to us. You cannot use your standards for this place to judge the immortal world, said the Eastern Wasteland Bell. Just at this moment, the elder opened his mouth, unleashing a ray of swordlight at Long Chen. He had previously been fighting extremely woodenly, causing Long Chen to be caught off guard. Now, Long Chen instinctively dodged. The swordlight flew past him, but the elder managed to knock him back. Watch out! The Eastern Wasteland Bell suddenly cried out, and Long Chen also sensed danger. Without looking back, he smashed a fist behind him. Long Chen's arm quivered. He ended up striking another elder's fist. At some point, another opponent had appeared. This was not a clone but another immortal corpse. Long Chen suddenly saw that the gates to the immortal palace were open, and inside were densely packed coffins. He couldn't even count how many of them there were. One of those coffins had been opened, and Long Outyen was standing there, forming hand seals. He's going to unleash all the immortal corpses. Stop him, warned the Eastern Wasteland bell. Just as it spoke, another 7 coffins opened. 7 figures charged out at Long Chen. Now, Long Chen was surrounded by 9 immortal corpses. Their attacks pressed him badly. He wanted to charge out of their encirclement, but he was blocked. Long Chen, you never expected this, right? The Divine Family's trump card is far more terrifying than you expected. There are 30,000 immortal corpse puppets here, more than enough to crush the martial heaven continent. Today, I'll summon half to kill you. Let's see how long you can last, sneered Long Outyen. With a tablet in his hand, he was constantly dripping more essence blood into it, causing more coffins to open. The immortal corpses were being awakened by his spirit blood. 6-star battle armor. Long Chen shouted. 6 stars lit up within his divine ring, and the star diagram inside of the divine ring looked as if it was boiling over. Boom. With a single punch, an immortal corpse was sent flying. That immortal corpse's runes rapidly dimmed. With that one punch, Long Chen had exhausted all the corpse's immortal qi. Without the protection of its runes, it quickly became a simple corpse, rotting before it even landed on the ground. With the 6-star battle armor, Long Chen fought the immortal corpses surrounding him. He blasted them away. His new star diagram caused even the 6-star battle armor to become more ferocious. Today, I'll smash apart this broken palace of yours. Long Chen stepped toward the immortal ceiling palace. However, just at that moment, the Eastern Wasteland bell cried out. Not good. Return to the martial heaven continent immediately. The Eastern Wasteland bell didn't give Long Chen any chance to refuse. It directly appeared above Long Chen's head, and divine light enveloped Long Chen. Some of the immortal corpses charging over had their runes directly corrode when they were touched by that light. They quickly began to rot. The sound of an ancient bell rang throughout the world, and golden light filled the air. The Eastern Wasteland bell brought Long Chen flying away. It's the Eastern Wasteland bell. The Divine Family's experts recognized the Eastern Wasteland bell, the leader of the 5 supreme divine items of the martial heaven continent. However, they didn't know why it would appear here. Only those on the level of saints were aware of the secret involving the Eastern Wasteland bell. At this moment, the void was torn apart. The Eastern Wasteland bell didn't take a spatial channel. It directly barged through the spatial wall to return to the martial heaven continent. When Long Chen appeared on the martial heaven continent, his expression completely changed. There was a berserk energy hanging within the air, like a volcano that had been accumulating for millions of years and was on the verge of erupting. This power was enough to destroy the entire world. As the Eastern Wasteland bell quivered, Long Chen's vision changed and he appeared in front of the corrupt god cemetery. There were countless experts of the undying race here, surrounding an altar that was emitting a pillar of blood qi into the sky. It seemed as if millions and millions of life forms had been sacrificed. Even from a great distance, it was possible to sense an immense resentful air. Boss! The dragon blood warriors guarding this place cried out when they saw Long Chen. Meng Qi and the others cried. Long Chen really had returned. They had been extremely worried this entire time but hadn't dared to tell anyone else about it. The other world's experts had been constantly spreading the news that Long Chen had been captured, to the point that even the dragon blood warriors had started to sense that something was wrong. However, they kept those suspicions inside. Even if they could tell that Long Chen's clone was not his true body, they didn't say anything. Now that he was back, they were all ecstatic. All their worries vanished like clouds in a wind, and their blood began to heat up. With Long Chen here, they didn't fear any battle. Long Chen looked at the Dragon Blood Legion and couldn't help being moved. Meng Qi and the others had truly worked hard during this time. The unending supply of medicinal pills had allowed every single Dragon Blood warrior to advance to the 9th heaven stage. Moreover, Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Tang Wen, Yu Zifeng, Gu Yang, and the others had all advanced to the 10th heaven stage to become venerates. What Long Chen hadn't expected was that there would also be 2 saints. Furthermore, the most unexpected thing was that one was Emo Nien, while the other was Yi Zhiqiu. However, after a moment of thought, he supposed that it was due to the 2 supreme divine items in their hands. Other than them, Wild, who was also in possession of a supreme divine item, was practically exploding with blood qi. His body was covered in golden runes and looked as if it had been made of gold. His realm could not be evaluated based on the martial heaven continent's cultivation standards. As for the western desert axe on Wild's back, all of its rust had long since fallen off. It shone with an unprecedented divine light and contained a powerful murderous aura around it. As soon as Long Chen returned, he sensed the eastern wasteland bell saying something to the western desert axe, the northern source sword, and the central plains cauldron. You're finally back. If you still didn't return, you wouldn't be able to blame me when I take the place of the main character. Emo Nien laughed and hugged Long Chen warmly. Emo Nien and Guoran were the only ones who hadn't been worried about Long Chen, because they had almost blind faith in him. In Guoran's opinion, his boss was unbeatable and nothing could stop him. As for Emo Nien, he thought that Long Chen was a bad person, and bad people never had short lives. This scourge would definitely live a long life. What's the situation? Asked Long Chen. We don't know. These meatless fellows suddenly dragged out this altar, and then the aura of the entire world changed. We were in the midst of deciding whether or not we should launch a direct attack on them. Emo Nien shrugged. He was also befuddled by what the undying race was doing. They're offering flesh and blood to the heaven-devastating bracelet so that it awakens. Prepare yourself. The battle is about to start, said the eastern wasteland bell suddenly. What? Emo Nien and the others were startled. The heaven-devastating bracelet was on the verge of awakening? But the master of the southern sea zither was under the enemy's control, and they had yet to gather all 5 supreme divine items. What were they to do? Suddenly, the land began to shake. The laws of heaven and earth were thrown into chaos. It was as if a heaven-swallowing beast at the bottom of the world was about to come out. Mountains collapsed and lava exploded. The very shape of the world was distorted. It was as if the apocalypse had come. The heaven-devastating bracelet is starting to move. It's contracting, trying to squeeze out the core of the martial heaven continent. If it does, this world will collapse. We don't have that much time, said the eastern wasteland bell. I need a master to unleash my full power. Who is willing to join forces with me to protect the martial heaven continent, to live and die for the continent? Senior, why not me? Asked Long Chen. You are the game breaker. The game can only be broken from outside of the game. You cannot be my master, said the eastern wasteland bell. Senior, this junior is Gu Yang. I am willing to fight alongside you. Even if my bones are ground to dust, I will not hesitate, said Gu Yang. It wasn't just Gu Yang. The rest of the Dragonblood warriors also stepped forward. Despite knowing that if they did this, their life would no longer belong to just them, not one person retreated. The eastern wasteland bell cast its divine light onto Gu Yang. It said, although your aptitude is a bit lacking, it's still acceptable. Then one moment. Suddenly, a voice rang out. Everyone turned to see a white-robed Yun Tian appear like a celestial king. Senior, please see if this junior is acceptable. Yun Tian bowed to the eastern wasteland bell. The eastern wasteland bell scanned him with its divine light, as if appraising him. After a long time, it sighed. This father and son pair. The martial heaven continent owes you far too much. Yun Tian shook his head. Senior, where did those words come from? People are born from heaven and earth. Without this world, where would I be? If my father could do it, then I can also do it. The eastern wasteland bell sighed. Fine, fine. Everything will be up to fate. The eastern wasteland bell glowed and Yun Tian's aura shuddered. Only now did they realize that Yun Tian's cultivation base had reached the peak of the Saint Realm. It was even higher than Emo Nien and the others. A bell-shaped rune then appeared on Yun Tian's forehead. The eastern wasteland bell vanished, merging with Yun Tian. This process of acknowledging a master was very simple. Brother Longchen, I will work with Senior to stop the heaven-devastating bracelet from destroying the Martial Heaven continent. But all we can do is stall it to win more time for you. Whether or not this board can be broken will ultimately be up to you. Good luck. Yun Tian patted Long Chen's shoulder. He then turned around and vanished. Yun Tian had just left when a commotion appeared amongst the Undying Race's side. Their army parted, and a certain person walked out from within the corrupt god cemetery. How can this be? Upon seeing him, Mo Nian and the others' expressions changed. They couldn't believe it. It was Yi Ming. However, when he appeared, a powerful sovereign might radiated out of him, causing the world to shake. People's souls involuntarily quivered in front of him. Impossible! It must be fake. Guarant's voice shuddered. This sovereign aura could only be possessed by a true sovereign. Although this sovereign might felt a little bit different, it was definitely sovereign might. There was also a sovereign crown above Yi Ming's head, so there was no mistaking it. Behind Yi Ming was Gui Si, the old monster that had once fought for 3 days and nights against Sovereign Ziyang. Behind him was the endless army of the Undying Race, and there was no way to see their true numbers. The army of the Undying Race was mostly in the mid-heaven merging realm, but their numbers were so great that it sparked despair. Suddenly, Long Chen's clone disintegrated and Evil Moon once more appeared in his hand. Huolinger also returned to his arm, along with the Demon Moon Furnace and the Heaven-Flipping Seal. Yi Ming stepped to the front of the Undying Army and turned toward Long Chen. Ha! I bet you didn't expect this, did you, Long Chen? I'm already a sovereign. I'm faster than everyone else. The Martial Heaven continent's star core will land in my hands. The plan of 2 lifetimes, the focus of tens of thousands of years, was all for today. The Martial Heaven continent will be destroyed by my hands. There is no longer anyone in this world who can stop me. I, Yi Ming, am the ultimate winner. Long Chen rested Evil Moon on his shoulder. He coldly said, I must say it really is unexpected. You spent 2 lifetimes and sacrificed the corrupt god's property to lay this path for you to ascend to the heavens in one go. Truly amazing. However, are you not afraid of the corrupt god finding you for payment once you ascend now that you've destroyed their corrupt path? Do you think the corrupt god only has this one place to nurture followers? All I did was borrow one world. The corrupt god also wouldn't necessarily know about it. And even then, so what? I have the support of the Undying Race behind me. You think losing the little corrupt path here is enough reason to go for an all-out war against the Undying Race's god? Cut the crap. Don't stall. I know that you brought back the Eastern Wasteland Bell, but it's meaningless. Without all 5 supreme divine items gathered, you can't suppress the heaven-devastating bracelet. Furthermore, the only reason they were capable of fighting the heaven-devastating bracelet back then was because the Martial Heaven continent was in its prime. Now, the Martial Heaven continent has 1 foot in the grave. It cannot give the 5 supreme divine items enough power. Even if they were all gathered, it wouldn't stop the destruction of the Martial Heaven continent. What bullshit? Are you blind? Cursed Guaran. Did you not see that the heaven-devastating bracelet is no longer moving? A single Eastern Wasteland Bell is enough to suppress it all on its own. Guaran could not accept that this person that they had beaten like a dog had now become a sovereign. In the star-field divine world, although there was some difference between himself and Yi Ming, he still possessed the ability to fight him. However, now, all Guaran's cultivation only resulted in him reaching the 9th heaven stage, while Yi Ming had become a sovereign. Where was the justice in that? You think you've suppressed it? Ha! Yi Ming laughed. What a naive thought. The heaven-devastating bracelet has been hidden in the Martial Heaven continent for over 100,000 years. Like a tumor, it has been absorbing the continent's strength with every passing day. Now, its power has far surpassed the remaining power of the Martial Heaven continent. Even the 5 sovereigns were unable to do anything to it after exhausting all their methods. They could only slow down its speed. Now, the 5 sovereigns are dead, and the heaven-devastating bracelet has accumulated enough power to destroy the Martial Heaven continent. Do you think a little eastern wasteland bell can suppress it? How laughable. You're spouting bullshit, sneered Guaran. He intentionally quibbled meaninglessly just to stall time. The Undying Race's attack had come out of nowhere, and many experts of the Martial Heaven continent were still in seclusion. To call them all out and have them enter a combat-ready state would take some time. However, Long Chen stopped Guaran and indicated for everyone to retreat. Just like that, he walked toward Ming. A moth to the fire, sending itself to its own death? Are you in such a rush to die? Sneered Ming. You are stalling. Although I don't know why you decided to do that, I myself have decided to get things started. Long Chen's aura began to climb. With every step he took, his aura rose. Even in the face of Ming, who had become a sovereign, Long Chen was fearless. For some reason, after his star diagram awakened, he was filled with endless confidence. This domineering will cause him to lose any desire to be cautious. I didn't expect you to see through it. But that's fine. It still won't change the Martial Heaven continent's fate. Long Chen, today I'll return the humiliation you gave me plus the interest. At this moment, a blood-colored sword appeared in Ming's hand and blood chi erupted, dyeing the world red. When this sword came out of its sheath, a sharp aura made people's hair stand on end. This was a peerless weapon infected by unlimited resentment. With this sword in hand and a sovereign crown on his head, Ming was like an evil king. Terrifying ripples then spread from him, causing the Daos of the world to cry out. This is the corrupt heaven sword, a divine item that the corrupt god personally made. Perhaps you don't know, but it once tasted Sovereign Ziyang's blood. Using it to kill you is appropriate. Ming gazed down on Long Chen like he was an ant coming to his death. However, Long Chen didn't seem to see or hear Ming. The rhythm of his footsteps didn't change. His divine ring suddenly appeared behind him, along with the star diagram. His aura erupted like a volcano. With another step, white scales covered Long Chen's body, forming a connection with his star diagram and divine ring. Evil Moon, you've always been complaining that my power wasn't enough, restricting your power. Today, I think that my power is enough. Evil Moon quivered. The star diagram covered its pitch-black surface. It was like the cosmos's stars were revolving within Evil Moon. Evil Moon cried out excitedly, You succeeded? Black chi gushed out of Evil Moon. From within every star in its body, it was possible to hear a furious dragon's roar. At this moment, endless power poured into Evil Moon's body. With Long Chen's boundless power, Evil Moon was free to use all its abilities. It felt like it had escaped from a swamp. An ant also dares to look down on a sovereign's might? Seeing Long Chen remain indifferent even after saying so much, Ming was finally angry. He then slashed his sword down, unleashing his sovereign might. 6-star battle armor. Long Chen cried out. He swung Evil Moon with its endless starlight at Ming's sword. 9-star Hegemon body art. Whether or not you are truly a heaven-defying cultivation technique will be decided here. Boom. The corrupt heaven sword slashed onto Evil Moon. This was a heaven-shaking collision, and divine light exploded out of both of these evil weapons. Meng Qi and the others had long since retreated far away, and yet the resulting Qi waves were still suffocating. The evil Qi of both weapons in particular caused stabbing pain in their souls. It was as if countless resentful spirits were wailing. This sword and saber had devoured the lives of far too many life forms, and their resentment had infected both of them. At this moment, the sovereign might raged throughout heaven and earth. This was the might that exceeded the 10,000 Daos of the world, the might that suppressed all the laws of the world. Hence, the dragon blood warriors' hearts shuddered. Ming was a true sovereign, so even the laws that he controlled had gone through a qualitative change. It was no wonder there was a saying that sovereigns stood at the peak of the martial path. A sovereign simply stood on another level. It was a level others couldn't touch. Qi waves then blew through the air, unleashing sharp astral winds that tore at the void like millions of sharp blades. Boss is fine. Guaran cried out excitedly. The twisting space made it difficult for them to see what was going on inside. Using spiritual perception was an even worse idea. However, Guarant's armor allowed him to see through the twisting space. At this moment, stars revolved around Long Chen's back, and black chi gushed out of Evil Moon, blocking Yi Ming's attack. Everyone from the martial heaven continent was heartened to see that Long Chen was capable of blocking a sovereign's attack. As the two divine items clashed, cracking sounds rang out, and it was transmitted throughout the entire world. A sovereign's power? It's only on this level. Long Chen had 108,000 stars, giving him an unending source of energy. Evil Moon received that energy and was finally capable of unleashing its full power. I really didn't expect you to have such power. Yi Ming looked at Long Chen coldly. He had launched this attack as soon as he became a sovereign, thinking that he could crush the martial heaven continent instantly. However, unexpectedly, Long Chen had gained a completely different kind of power. His sovereign power, which was capable of suppressing all other Daos, was unable to suppress Long Chen's power. A sovereign's power has transcended the restrictions of the laws of the mortal world, reaching another level. This kind of power should be considered on the same level as an immortal or god. It comes from this world yet exceeds this world's power. Only now do I realize that I long since had this kind of power but never knew about it. Long Chen smiled faintly. Perhaps he really should thank the Heaven Executioner. If the Heaven Executioner hadn't crushed one of his star diagram would still be static, and he wouldn't possess this kind of astral power. Before his star diagram awakened, his astral power was limited by the laws of the martial heaven continent. Now, there was nothing capable of restricting his astral power. Long Chen sighed inside. If he had comprehended this principle half a year ago and abandoned one of his stars back then, he would have immediately gained this astral power and destroyed all his enemies. What nonsense! A sovereign's power is the result of an entire world's laws circulating to the peak within them. It then transcends that peak. This requires using up the karmic luck that an entire world has accumulated for tens of thousands of years. You had this kind of power a long time ago? Do you think others are idiots to believe that? You think this strange new power of yours is enough to contend against me? You really are too naive. Yi Ming's sovereign crown suddenly unleashed divine light onto him. After that, he pushed his sword forward and the void exploded. Long Chen was forced back several steps, every step causing the void to explode. With a final push, Yi Ming knocked him back into the distance. Today, I'll show you what absolute power is. Long Chen rested Evil Moon on his shoulder and sneered, "You're angry. Your anger stems from the unease in your heart. Although I don't know how you became a sovereign, I know it was a trick. That's the only way you could have become a sovereign before everyone else, and that's the only way for you to strike in advance and grab all the benefits first. But the path of cultivation has no shortcuts. Anyone who takes a shortcut will pay a painful price." "Shut up!" Yi Ming roared furiously. Just as Long Chen said, he had taken a shortcut. He had sacrificed the entire corrupt path and its millions and millions of lives, gathering the karmic luck of two worlds in order to break through to the sovereign realm as quickly as possible. It was fast, but his sovereign power had some flaws. This was the price he had paid, but he was willing to do so. That was because if he waited until everyone else also became a sovereign, the odds of the Starfield's core landing in his hands would be extremely low. When it came to its foundation, the resentful Death City was the weakest of the various worlds. In his eyes, the martial heaven continent was a plump piece of meat that no one could resist. His only concern was to feast on it before the divine families, the blood race, the demonic beast race, and the others. Boom! Yi Ming slashed his sword at Long Chen, who swung Evil Moon. This time, both of them were blown back. Long Chen smashed into the ground, leaving a giant hole. As for Yi Ming, the space behind him exploded, and he was almost sucked into a spatial crack. The earth shuddered and Long Chen shot out like a bolt of lightning. This time, he was the one attacking. Yi Ming was startled. Long Chen wasn't injured in the slightest from their previous exchange. Hence, he raised his sword again. Boom! Both of them were blown back once more, but Yi Ming's expression changed. He was almost sucked into the chaotic flow of space. The laws inside there were completely different from this world. Hence, even if his cultivation base was at heaven merging, he would still be ground to dust. Long Chen was trying to force him inside. Heaven-earth net. Yi Ming formed hand seals, causing a giant net to appear behind him and latch onto the world. He then smashed into a spatial crack but wasn't sucked inside. The net pulled him out. Borrowing that rebound force, he shot toward Long Chen, his sword piercing for Long Chen's chest. Holding Evil Moon at a slant, Long Chen caused Yi Ming's sword to slide off. At the same time, his left hand slapped Yi Ming's face. The right half of Yi Ming's face exploded, and it was possible to see bone through the mangled mess. He flew back with a grunt. Even a sovereign can still be slapped in the face just like before? Guoran, Mo Nian, and the others' jaws dropped. Originally, everyone had felt a deep terror for Yi Ming since he had become a sovereign. That was because the sovereigns had left an undefeatable impression on people's hearts. In their hearts, sovereigns were undefeatable existences. No one else could stand shoulder to shoulder with them. However, Long Chen's slap toppled that reality. Who cared if Yi Ming was a sovereign? He could still be slapped in the face. Long Chen. Yi Ming roared, unable to maintain the dignity of a sovereign now that he had been slapped. His face twisted until it looked like his crotch, and he furiously charged back at Long Chen. Transient life bridge. The world suddenly changed following Yi Ming's cry, and a white bone bridge appeared in the air. Yi Ming and Long Chen both shrank and appeared on that bridge. Every bone on that bridge let out an ear-piercing wail that pierced deep into people's hearts. This was a sound attack that could shatter souls. Even those outside of the bridge felt the sound crashing over them like waves. It was like ghosts demanding their life, invoking the most primal fear in people. Holding his sword with both hands, Yi Ming attacked with a physical attack in combination with the sound attack. How foolish! You want to attack my heart? I, Long Chen, have never known fear. Long Chen sneered. His spiritual sea churned against the sound of 10,000 ghosts wailing. Split the heavens 9. Boom. A giant saber image tore into the sky, and the bridge instantly exploded. It was simply a manifestation, not a true body. There was no need for flashy moves at their level. It was a direct and simple clash of power. As a result, both Yi Ming and Long Chen coughed up a mouthful of blood. In their full power exchange, both sides were injured. But they were still even. I'll slaughter you. Long Chen snorted. These repeated exchanges had allowed Long Chen to probe Yi Ming's true power. His expectation was on the mark. This so-called sovereign power was something that had exceeded the power of the 10,000 Daos to form a power that did not belong to this world. This was why the emperors could only be suppressed by the sovereigns. One was within the cage, while the other had transcended it. As for Long Chen, ever since his star diagram had awakened and he gained his new astral power, his power was also no longer part of the martial heaven continent. He could be considered another kind of sovereign. Although his cultivation base was only at the 9th heaven stage, his power did not lose out to Yi Ming. He was now confident he could kill the latter. With 3 steps, Long Chen shot left and then right, shooting through the air erratically before finally attacking Yi Ming from a strange angle. Yi Ming slashed his sword, only to hit nothing. It was actually an afterimage. Die! Suddenly, another figure charged over, slashing his saber. Yi Ming hastily turned around, pulling back his sword. Boom! At the critical moment, Yi Ming managed to block it. However, his expression changed. This attack was far too weak. Just at that moment, a palm silently struck Yi Ming's back. A lotus flower mark revolved in that palm. A large hole was blasted into Yi Ming's body. After that, Yi Ming was sent flying, his sovereign blood sprinkling through the air. This was a sovereign's blood, something that contained the highest laws of an entire world. When it was spilled, it caused the heavens to change color. What dogs hit sovereign? The difference between you and the 5 sovereigns of the continent is miles away. With your title being so fake, I will definitely kill you today, sneered Long Chen. He extended his arm, and Evil Moon flew back into his hand, along with a bolt of lightning. Just now, It was Lei Linger holding Evil Moon who had pretended to be Long Chen and attacked. As for Long Chen's true body, it had waited to launch a powerful blow. Yi Ming's new sovereign power was just like a mysterious veil over him. But now that this veil had been torn off, he was still the same Yi Ming. His techniques, his reactions, his patterns, they were fundamentally the same. For such a person to call himself a sovereign was practically an insult to the 5 sovereigns. The reason that they were sovereigns was because they had created their own unique techniques. They had not walked the common path. They had blazed an alternate path, each of them to the peak of the martial path. Compared to them, Yi Ming was simply trash. After tearing away the wolf mask, he was still just a sheep. This actually made Long Chen angry. The 5 sovereigns had a high position in his heart. Only the 5 sovereigns had ever made him feel this way. Long Chen, I will slaughter you. Yi Ming roared furiously, while the bloody wound continued to burn. The flames had yet to dissipate, but Yi Ming still charged toward Long Chen, black chi swirling around his body. Long Chen blocked Yi Ming's sword with Evil Moon and then slapped him in the face once more. This time, blood spurted out of Yi Ming's nose. Who do you think you are to call yourself a sovereign? Fuck, using a weapon is actually bullying you. Just like that, Long Chen put away Evil Moon and unleashed a barrage of punches at Yi Ming instead. Yi Ming then slashed his sword, causing blood to spray out of Long Chen's fist. However, his sword was still knocked aside. With his sword knocked aside, Yi Ming was open. After that, Long Chen landed a kick on Yi Ming's crotch, causing him to let out a grunt. He then involuntarily bent like a shrimp. As a result, his long hair fluttered. Emo Nien, Guoran, Gu Yang, and those familiar with Long Chen all sighed inside. It was over. As they predicted, Long Chen immediately grabbed Yi Ming's hair and smashed his face into his knee. This motion was incredibly fluid. It was done with a grace that did not match the action. Following that, the sound of bones breaking rang out along with Long Chen's cursing. Bang! Who said you could call yourself a sovereign? Bang! Who said you could call yourself a sovereign? Bang! Who said you could call yourself a sovereign? With every strike, the void rumbled. It wasn't just the sound of Yi Ming's bones breaking now, but there was also the sound of space cracking. Yi Ming struggled crazily. He randomly swung his sword, managing to slice through Long Chen's scales and make him bleed. But in his current state, he was only able to cause a few superficial wounds. With the primal chaos space's life energy, healing superficial wounds was simple. You little brat, did I give you too much face? You dare to call yourself a sovereign? Just keep acting, keep acting, keep acting. Long Chen emphasized his words with his knee, and sovereign blood kept spraying out. Emo Nien and the others simply watched in silence. Was this really a sovereign? In this world, was there ever a sovereign who was so viciously beaten? They almost couldn't believe their eyes. But the sovereign blood spraying out caused the heavenly Daos to rumble. It was truly a sovereign, not a fake. Suddenly, Long Chen's heart shook and a sense of danger filled him. He instinctively swung Yi Ming like a hammer behind him. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.